Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of The Creators Outlet. As always, please subscribe, comment, and share. Tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. And tonight we have our special guest. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Chris Fisk, and I am the writer and creator of the Infinitale Chronicles comic book, currently on Indiegogo.
Very good. To the podcast audience, anything, of course, as with every episode, when we talk about stuff we're looking at, you can always come to youtube.com/C/creators outlet to see any of the images. And the link, of course, will be in the description when you download or listen to the podcast, wherever you can get a podcast. It's almost like I memorized that crap. So tell us something about your background. And I don't mean the background of where we're seeing you with the big, giant video game console.
Oh, my little pet project. Well, I was a game designer for about a decade. Left the industry, leveraged my skills, and jumped into a completely different career. Made almost double what I was making in game development, and have been gainfully employed ever since for about a decade now, and quite happy with that move. And the Infinitale Chronicles comic series that I started is actually something that I began when I was about 12 or 13 as a really dumb kid in a town in Pelham, New Hampshire. And if it wasn't for a really, really nice librarian, I probably would still be illiterate and dumb as an adult as well. So I owe her a lot. And it was basically in that library where we had our first role-playing games or Dungeons and Dragons stuff. And the arrogance of youth, it was I could do that. And no, I couldn't. Not at the time. It took
everybody thinks that. That's the problem.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, I encourage it. Yeah, not safe for it. I encourage that level of arrogance because it helps us. It makes us take risks. Like the dumb kids are the ones that do stuff, and because when we get older, we're all cautious and we're like, yeah, I know what that's going to lead to. I'm not doing that, or that's going to cost too much, or So, when I was a kid doing this, I learned early on that I needed a lot of help, and the internet didn't exist at the time, or it did, but it was more in the bulletin board services. Remember those? 3.5 days to download porn.
Bulletin board services, chat rooms.
Welcome.
I remember a very low tech chat room, and it was the only one that I could afford because I couldn't afford a computer at the time. Was Web TV.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm old.
Was that like the Sega Channel stuff, or?
No, it wasn't Sega. It basically connected to the internet, so it would turn it had like a small console that would hook up to your TV, and it came with a keyboard. So you'd use a keyboard and a mouse, and you'd go into like various chat rooms. I met a whole bunch of people that way.
Wow.
I hooked up a few times that way.
Nice.
I'd probably be married to that girl now if when she threw the hint of, I might not be able to drive for a few weeks. I got to really ask my brother if he can pay my car insurance for me. I could have just like reached into my pocket and given her like, $500 in ones. There you go. Pay for the next 6 months.
Good God.
And she
just enough to get over here.
She probably would have moved in with me.
Oh, wow.
She met me at a Chili's restaurant on Route 44. And I said, what do you want to drink? As I'm walking in. And she's like, nah, we're going back to your place. I'm like, okay.
Cut to the chase.
I'm like, this is different. This never happened before.
All right. Hot coffee it is.
No. Went back to my place, watched a movie, and she said, you have any porn?
Damn.
Can you do that to me? Yeah.
Wow.
I go, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten. Look, if that
Bad.
wasn't meant to be eaten, it shouldn't look like a fucking taco.
Bad. Whenever I tell stories like that, it usually ends with, and then I woke up.
One time at band camp, they had to surgically remove my clarinet.
The rusty trombone.
Oh, God. Just terrible, terrible.
Oh, I miss movies like that.
So, what are some of the games that you worked on in the past that we might have played?
Unfortunately, every game that I've worked on, here's one of the curses of working in the gaming industry. Every game that I've worked on doesn't exist anymore. They were all online services games. This game called Firefall, it was like a massively multiplayer online shooter, persistent world game. Its servers went down about, I think, in 2016. And then I worked on another game.
I was busy then.
Yeah, yeah. Damn, man, that's definitely a tale I'd like to hear. But in addition to that, I worked on a game called Defiance, which was a television show on the Sci-Fi Channel mixed with the game, but it really wasn't. And it too was a online persistent world shooter, and I don't think the servers are up anymore. Because another lovely trait of the industry is you go through about 9 months of crunch, you limp across the finish line with your game, and then they say, yeah, thanks for all those 90-hour work weeks. Oh, by the way, you're laid off. So, and then I worked on some mobile games. I worked on this one startup game. It never saw the light of day, but when it was being like demoed everywhere, it was called Project Offset, and it was a FPS fantasy first-person shooter. And I mean, the visuals in that were amazing. And it was only like, I don't use the term genius loosely, but this guy, Sam, who like founded his own company and everything, like he was like the musician, he was the programmer, he did all this stuff. And he had these two brothers who were artists. So they all got together, and it was like 3 or 4 people. And they made this like tech demo that was better than like some of these like AAA things. And I was like, I want in on that. So
I remember the first MMO I got sucked into was the superhero game.
Oh, City of Heroes.
That's the one, City of Heroes. And then City of Villains came out, and I'm like, oh, this is much better. I can have henchmen.
Yes.
And then when I max out, I get this really nasty dude that does all kinds of different stuff depending on what kind of build you take. And I'm like, this is, and everybody spent the entire time designing their characters' costumes to look like trademarks of other ones. And there were all these simp rats running around reporting people.
That's Wolverine.
But with one they'd look, and with one pass of a hotkey, all my uniforms would turn black. But I think my favorite one was that I made. I saw somebody and I wanted to make it so bad because they had it like down pat, like perfect. Is they did an Aquaman that looked killer. They even had the scaling on the shirt and everything.
Nice.
I did a Vision though.
Oh, nice. The red and green one? Oh.
Yeah. Classic comic book Vision. Like the green and yellow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that one. I'm like, why don't you make it look like it's gonna be in the movie? Because I hate that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's entertainment, but yeah, I don't like the designs they're doing on it.
Yeah. Well, artists always have to put their stink on or at least I can't speak for comics, but I know in like movies and video games in particular, like you'll get like source material. Like I worked like one company was trying to get us to do an Elric of Melniboné game, and they're like, Chris, you're the nerd, you read this book, tell us about it. So I told them bits about it and stuff, and I told them details, and then the artist came back and it was like, nothing that I had described is on this image. It's like, yeah, but this is my style. It's like, yeah, but that's not. He has a ruby throne.
That's not what's in the script, moron.
Yeah, and they always do that. Marvel, I can imagine, because I know one of the guys I worked with works at Marvel. So, it's not a ding against him because he's an amazing artist. But I definitely see that, like, here's the source material. And it's like, yeah, well, I'm going to go over here and do something else. It's like, but you have this. Work with this.
Work with this. It's much better. See, I spent 90 hours last week describing what this guy looks like, and then you put him in, plaid thigh-high socks with a 3-foot long piece of charisse as a weapon. I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, yeah. Like, remember they were making digs of it in the X-Men movies, where it was like, what did you expect, yellow spandex? Yeah, I did, because I spent 20 years reading that. So
the problem is how bad they would all look in yellow spandex.
Yeah,
on screen with the lighting and everything. it would be awful.
I don't know. Famke Jensen in yellow spandex.
Well, I'd rather see her in, I don't know, nothing.
It's the Invisible Woman's costume, I swear.
I'm invisible.
Sure you are. Why do you keep looking in my direction then? Oh, no reason.
Well, I'm invisible. You're really not. And you should really shave before you come on set next time.
Looks like you got a dwarf and a leg lock.
Oh God. It's like we've gone into the jungle deep. It turned into a Dolomite episode. What the hell?
Bitch, are you for real?
Way down in the jungle deep. So why don't we start by you giving us the elevator pitch for this?
Sure. The elevator pitch, or the quick and dirty of Infinitale Chronicles, is it's a epic fantasy comic book series that harkens back to Saturday morning cartoons from like the early 90s, late 80s. Things like Pirates of Darkwater or Conan the Adventurer, things like that.
I was just watching that last week.
Nice. Love
Conan
that
the
stuff.
Adventurer is free to watch on Tubi.
Nice.
The more you know.
Yeah. In addition to that, it also has kind of inspiration from 90s anime. So there is levels of violence in there as well. It's definitely not a kiddie's book. Oddly enough, it was written by kids. I figured that because this comic book series was based off of the Chronicles taken from a tabletop role-playing game that I had developed back in the 90s. I had developed it for like 8 years. So I had these willing beta testers who were testing out my game rules. And, I couldn't have done it without them. We're all kids. And I realized that the 90s were a different time because kids could watch and see things that, today's kids can't. But the Chronicles were, taken down, and I put it all aside because, I graduated high school. I needed to get a job. I had no time, no resources to do anything, and went off to university, then got a job, moved around the world, Japan, California, all these different places. Never had any time. But I always had this one shipping container that had all of my notes in it. And after I left the game industry, because one thing that people need to learn about game development is you never make your game. So when I left the industry, I was kind of creatively constipated. I wanted to do something because I, again, left a creative industry, and I turned to the shipping container and started pulling out these notes. And I was like, holy crap, this is actually this is a good read. Like, even though this was, based off of a Dungeons and Dragons game, or actually it wasn't a dungeon, a tabletop role-playing game, it actually has a coherent story. This, cleaned it up a little bit, and I can actually make a decent series out of it. And I started redeveloping the tabletop role-playing game. And I realized, technology and the world has passed by that time, and people are more into video games now and whatever. So I was talking to a friend about it who actually works in a company that makes a really famous MMO, but I don't know for how much longer. And we were talking about it, and he's like, I think the reason why people like World of Warcraft so much, or a reason why they had such a quick adoption to it, was because they were so familiar with the universe and the world of Warcraft before the MMO was out. So maybe you could do something like that with with your game, as you get people invested in the world before you make the game.
Thanks, Lorenzo. Just a
Uh,
passing hello and
Yeah.
giving us a thumbs up, and he's got to go.
The Doppler effect.
Hey, whatever works.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks, mate. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So, the idea was, well, if I could generate interest in the universe of this tabletop game, by giving the stories from the previous games that we've chronicled, it might introduce you into this expansive universe, so that when the game is developed, it's like, oh, I'm familiar. I know these locations. I know these characters. I know these terms. And that's pretty much what birthed the initial idea for the comic book. And then I approached this company, High Concept Media, this guy Zen, who said, yeah, I can make you a comic book, or I could help you out with it. And I contacted a few of my artist friends in the industry. That's why I feel very blessed, is that even though the gaming industry kind of chews up naive 20-somethings and shits out jaded 30, 40-somethings, you definitely make good friends with the people in the trenches with you. And I was fortunate enough to know some amazingly talented artists, and I reached out to them, and some of them have helped me put some variant covers in here, and like I got a pretty spiffy logo, I think, out of the deal. I kind of massaged it a bit to make it Chronicles, because there was a distinction between the Infinitale fantasy role-playing game and the Infinitale Chronicles comic book series, and that's why it's a bit of a doctored logo, but it was fun to make, and very appreciative that I have know some artists with some amazing talent for that.
So you took the old game logo and you gave it a little slap and tickle, and it turned into this.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I have a background in like After Effects as well, so I was able, graphic design. So it was, they say graphic designers are artists that can't draw, but basically I kind of massaged it, and like you said, gave it a little bit of the Yabble massage, and out came the Infinitale Chronicles logo, and yeah, it's its own distinct brand. It's its own comic book series. If you're not interested in the role-playing game, it's okay, because the series itself has a very solid foundation. It has a distinct beginning, middle, and end. It's not like J.J. Abrams. I'm not winging it as I go along. These things were 30 years in the making. I actually, because the games were played for over 8 years, there's multiple, like what we called sagas, which was a collection of adventures. When I was developing the tabletop role-playing game system, one of the things that really bothered me about Dungeons and Dragons was the modules. Like, the modules were very finite. Like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the fantasy role-playing stuff, but they railroad you through the adventure. Like, there is a distinct beginning, a distinct middle, and a distinct end, but that's it. There's no multiple branching paths or anything. And to me, that's very limiting. That feels like it feels like a computer game. It feels like what I developed when I was in the gaming industry. And it's not what I took away when I was, this dumb kid in his teens, starting out, going, well, if I buy this module and the dungeon master has it and this guy has it, and we're all reading it, we already know what's there, and we're not the members of the jury, so we're not going to strike it from the record. You're not going to magically forget, and all these. Oh well, that's how that's. No, it's human nature. You know what's coming. Like, why would you want to play a game when you've already seen the ending? Like, you've already experienced it, and part of the draw to me of tabletop role playing was that freeform element of no two stories are the same, no two adventures are the same. That's where I got infinite and tail, and then just made a portmanteau out of it. And the idea is that you would have this adventure and you would have these story beats, and you could change them on the fly, so that when the players felt like they got the wiser of you and they're like, oh, I know where this is leading, you could go, oop, no, it's over here. I've got a card that's now saying that this is the plot point and this is the direction we're going.
You've turned a D&D style game, back to the TSR days, into a tabletop MMO.
well, one of the kind of draws that I was trying to use as like a unique element for the game, and this is before the MMOs or whatever took off, was the concept of like a loot chase, where another thing in Dungeons and Dragons that always bothered me was you got the best weapon and you just held on to it for the rest of the game. I got the slippers of spider climbing; those things are staying on my feet forever. I got the +3 sword of Holy Avenger or whatever. I am never going to drop this. I'm always going to use this, and it never really like what was the impetus? Like if you already knew the adventure's conclusion and you already had the best gear, what was to keep you going other than the shooting the breeze with your mates? Like
you become a thief.
Yeah, murder hobo.
So you can steal the best gear.
Yeah. Yep, it's like during the apocalypse, all those people who've hoarded the survival rations are just giving it to the people with the guns.
Oh yeah, it's like, give me the toilet paper, or you're gonna take one for the team.
Yep.
It's just crazy. I remember because D&D originally came out when I was in middle school, and there was a tiny little hole-in-the-wall hobby shop across the main road from our middle school. Oh, nice. I used to wander over there because one of my dad's cousins worked in a wine trobs that was in the corner, because it was a big mall, like not mall, but a 1970s mall. So a strip mall, and the local movie theater was there for me, and I saw Moonraker, all 3 Star Wars movies, all 3 Indiana Jones movies, and first 2 Superman movies, all there.
Nice.
Before they built the big complex one by my aunt and uncles. So then it was a choice. Do you want to go see it at the small theater, or do you want to go to Uncle's and see if we can see it in the big theater?
Jordan's Furniture, IMAX.
Let's go to Uncle's, because that means Auntie's going to make me something to eat. And if the movie's sold out, Uncle will be watching the Bruins game. I'm good. And it went from there. But I used to go in there almost every day until they pretty much banned me. I didn't have any money. Kids couldn't make money doing anything back then.
Yeah, that's true.
You had to wait till like you were 16 or 17 to get a job. And even then, not hiring. And, you had to figure stuff out for yourself. So I would get, my mother would give me like $1 for picking up all the rocks and twigs before she would mow the lawn. I, in turn, would hire one of my best friends' 2 younger brothers to pick up all the rocks and twigs from the lawn for $0.25 a piece. My mother would give me 4 quarters. I would make 50 cents, and I was first shift supervisor.
Nice.
I'd sit in the front stoop and do that. He goes, and they'd go home. They go back home. He goes, Billy just gave me $0.25. For what? He goes, we picked up all the rocks and sticks and the thing. He goes, wasn't that his job? He goes, yeah. He got $1 for it. But he sat there and we picked them all up for 25 cents a piece. Can we go buy candy now?
Nice. Remember that when quarters could get you candy?
Yeah. I'm like, stop ratting me out.
Yeah.
But it was never enough to buy the books. I never had enough money to buy the books. I was, more concerned of, saving, getting 50 cents for, not doing anything. So I could buy 1, maybe 2 comic books on Sunday morning at the spinner rack at the drugstore at the top of the street than I was of picking up those. One, because the books were full of lots and lots of words. I hated reading.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what any of that stuff I still don't have any idea what that stuff in the book's talking about. I tried to play D&D with some kids from school who all, of course, didn't like me. So, of course, the DM on my first roll killed me. So, and I'm like, well, you suck. And later years, like around high school, we started playing the awful version of the Marvel Superheroes RPG.
I think I remember that one.
That was the original one where if you played as Aunt May with the correct roll and buffs, you could move the Earth out of the orbit. Or the moon. It was either you could move Earth out of its orbit. Yeah, that's what it was. You could move Earth out of its orbit and kill everybody. It was just, it was terrible. So we spent 3 months, rolling and developing characters and doing our sheets and everything. And then, I saw him and go, so we finally ready to sit down and play a game? Nah, that stuff's not cool anymore.
Oh,
fuckers.
Oh, that sucks.
And even though I never played it, I never had any of the core stuff. I bought a ton of the mini campaigns. What do you call them? Modules.
Yep.
For the DC role-playing game, because I've been a DC kid, forever. DC now can kiss my fat white ass. And Marvel too. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
I know you have some friends working at Marvel, but nothing against the talent, but and I wouldn't actually call him talent, but Dan Slott, go fuck yourself.
Damn. Yeah. Well, it's like active. Well,
you thumbed up an Ethan Van Sciver post.
Yeah. Did you see the cartoon that was circulating around YouTube of Ethan Van Sciver's summation of what happened to Marvel? He was talking about, I fear the blue-haired land whales, but I'm freaking Ahab.
Yeah. I like Ethan. I have a stack of the original Cyberfrog series sitting over here somewhere.
Nice.
I found it a few weeks ago. At the same time, I found most of all the early Crusade work from Billy Tucci. So, of course, yes, I bought his omnibus. Why wouldn't I? It's a big book. I can probably sell the others and still have it. So, but yeah, he's a little bit larger than life and thinks a little too much of himself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that happened. Like, I don't know him enough to be like you know what I mean. It's like when you get to a certain size and you're on media and you're presenting to like a lot of people.
Yeah, you gotta be larger than life and a dick quite a bit of times. and he pulls off that pretty well. I mean, I like him. I actually met him about 15 years ago at Boston Comic Con before they sold their souls to Fan Expo.
Oh.
Met him, talked to him for a few minutes. I was holding on to what little money I had, so I didn't know how. Way back then, I didn't know how any of the stuff worked because I hadn't actually been to any kind of convention but a Star Trek convention.
Oh, are you a Trekkie or a Trekker?
Yeah, a fan. I stepped on Walter Koenig's foot.
Oh, Captain!
It was pure accident. He was like the only guest from the original show there. and he was just walking around. My friend and I were there. His parents brought us because we were like 17 and 18. So his parents drove us up because they liked the show too, and they just they hung out and let us go and hang out for a few hours because how far could teenagers get in a Star Trek convention with $20 in each of their pockets after they paid for tickets? Answer: not far. You might be able to buy one thing if you're lucky, and that one thing was not an autograph.
Yeah.
Although back then, I think they were about $25.
Man, inflation.
Oh, please. I'm like, I always ask people, he goes, oh, yeah, I'm going to meet this one and this one and this one. Like, why are you giving millionaires your money?
Yeah.
You do know there's all these different stores with legit autographs of these people on their pictures that you can buy for 10%. But I want to meet them. Why? You're going to get 30 seconds with them, and then they're not going to remember anybody. It's just a look up. What's your name? Here you go.
Yeah.
And you're going. It's it's that unless you have another $200 to spend on a picture.
Yeah. Although
I hated the fact that photo ops became a thing. And I'm like, that is the end of conventions for me. And it was.
Yeah. You could just hold out your arm like this and all of a sudden,
yeah. Or you could bring back then you could bring an actual camera with you and be like, you buy the autograph and merch from their table. Like, hey, can I get a picture? Sure. And they stand up and they stand next to you and you get a picture. It's no big deal. Why now it costs, and of course, because they're used to money from the mouse. So, everybody in the MCU wants $1,000, close to $1,000 a pop for a picture with you. Or an autograph. So like if you want to meet, Captain America, and you want an autograph and a picture, it's going to cost you close to $2,000.
Ouch.
I'm sorry. If I can pay a mortgage for 4 months or meet this schlub that used to be the Human Torch and now claims to be Captain America. Yeah, sure. In what universe?
America's house.
I'm like, I mean, I like the actors and that they hired for all that, just fine. But I don't trust anybody in Hollywood, as far as I can throw them. And that's because it's tough to throw anybody when you're sitting in a wheelchair.
Yeah. I don't know. I lived out there. It's
yeah, I do not like California. My daughter has decided she does not like California either. I am more of a conservative. My daughter is a liberal. If I watch alternative news while she's here, she goes home and complains to her mother. And I probably shouldn't say this because she actually stalks my streams. Because this past weekend when she was here, notification goes off on her phone just about 30 minutes before I was going to go live on one of these streams. And I go, you sub to my channel and you're getting notifications. It's the only place I can hear you swear. I'm like, oh, child. But, it is what it is. I actually played some D&D online late last year, early this year. But it was all through Discord.
Mm-hmm.
Through people I play Neverwinter Online from Cryptic because it's free.
Yep.
I get the D&D thing and it's free, and they just unleashed the bard. So I'm playing as a bard, realizing how much it sucks to play as a bard. And I'm like, I'm hitting these people with 3 special moves and the automatic moves, and I'm like, oh, I get a rapier. This is gonna suck. That's a 10-foot, wood elf. What the hell? Can I get an axe? Can you help a brother out? But overall, I like the game, and I met a good bunch of people there, and they're like, "Hey, we play D&D on Saturday night. You want to play?" I go, yeah.
Very cool.
And I'm like, yeah. So I played with somebody that with a DM that didn't try to kill. I died like 7 times. Thank God. Thank God there was always somebody with some kind of resurrection spell. And the funny thing you get to do, you're not actually dead, but you're pretty damn close. I go, well, I've been there. And they're like, okay, roll a d20, and you have to roll over X amount. And if you roll over X amount, you can still be alive. And then when your turn cycles around, you can do something. I'm like, yeah, okay. So every time I was successful at that 3 times. The rest of the time they had to res me. And every time I got resed, whether they did it or I did it, the first move I was a wizard, so the first move I would make, cast invisibility on self. Walk away.
I'm John Cena.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm John Cena. I'm a tough wrestler. And now I'm going to apologize to China for calling Taiwan a nation.
The nation of Taiwan, a nation.
Yeah.
Well, the joke is they now call him Zhao Cena.
Yeah. And I'm like, I go, wow, you're actually the enemy.
Yep.
Why do you know fluent Cantonese?
Yeah, well, not only that, but it just, who's your daddy? It's the, when they're answering to foreign powers and not domestic ones, it makes you question. It makes you question who, where their loyalties lie, and clearly it's not with the United States, and that's a problem.
There's like groups that put out like these, answer a question meme on like Facebook in particular, and they'll like ask you a question, to see how, because every time somebody says something on it, their group name pops back up to the top of people's feeds. So they ask us, what's something that most people like, but you can't stand? Joe Biden. Last I saw, I had 300 upticks with 90% of them being, laughing emojis.
Well, I mean, come on, the most voted for president in the country.
Oh,
I mean, he was more.
Sure, he was.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. That's why they're still finding, tens of thousands of mail-in ballots that are, up and beyond, with his name on it, up and beyond the amount of people alive in the country.
Yeah, exactly. Was it? That's how you can tell he's a. He's an awesome president. Is how many presidents can get more votes than actual voters?
Yeah, it's like, welcome to Obama's 3rd term.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even really political or anything, and I was like, I understand what's happening, and I don't like it's.
I didn't like him at all, from the get-go. But after Afghanistan, I truly hate the man.
Yeah. I mean, it's well warranted.
Yeah,
I mean, even if you're liberal,
Yeah, he went someplace in New York, for 9/11.
And they booed him.
they booed him, and apparently, in New York, being called a mutt is like one of the highest forms of insult.
Ooh.
In New York, and it's a New York thing, right? Certain there's certain things that are like specific to certain areas of the country. That's a New York thing, and this is that came to me strictly from a New Yorker. They booed him. This guy is chewing him a new one for Afghanistan, calling him a mutt, and then he slowly starts approaching a young child, and somebody in the background yells, "Don't sniff him!"
Yeah, the Photoshop memes are hilarious, especially the one where he's sniffing himself.
Oh God, it's terrible. There was one where they did a thing at a school, and Jill walked out, and one of the students, young black teenager, walked out, and Joe, instead of following his wife to the podium, followed right behind the boy and put his hands on the kid's shoulders, and the kid just goes,
yeah. So this is how it's going to go.
And then something happened in his brain, and he just turned around and walked right off the stage.
I'm out.
It was probably like, ooh, look, more children. Yeah. Well, it's sniffing time again.
That's
all right.
Can you hold on one moment? Apparently my headphone batteries are dying. So I'm going to have to swap them out.
Sure, go ahead. I will play the trailer for people, and hopefully you will be back by then. If not, I will just stop talking.
Cool, thank you.
That time is no more. The illusions of safety and assurance are inexorably dispelled by experience. On the world of Asperia, the children of the gods were torn from their sanctuary of a blissful ignorance and unchallenged dogma. Eventually, everyone must grow up, even the eternally young. A single act of defiance set events in motion that would shatter the very foundation of existence. As the conflagration of a great war burned through the lands, unlikely allies rose from the ashes to defy extinction. The angered gods sought to rid the world of a blight that had befelled their flocks. This infection was an unforgivable sin, the true knowledge of creation. Their wrath was cruel and merciless. These are the tales of the great war that destroyed our world, and of the heroes that led us to new lands beyond it. Infinitale Chronicles, the War of the Trees.
Well, all right. Am I back on? Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Awesome. Yeah.
So that trailer was amazing. Who did the trailer?
I did.
Well, I should hope so. You have a background in gaming.
Yeah, I don't know if you've played any of the games, but if you've ever heard of like the Soul Reaver series, a lot of people are saying, is that Kane from Legacy of Kane?
Yes, I have played that.
So yeah, let's see.
It's probably in a reusable shopping bag over yonder. The canvas bags that you buy for like 99 cents at the market or the bread store, and I would never remember to bring them back, so I have about 70 of them. Which is good because every weekend when my daughter goes back to her mother's house, she's like, "You have a bag I can put all my stuff in?" I'm like, "Yeah, here you go." Because I get a new one like every week. So they bring like prepackaged meals to me like on Fridays.
Oh, nice.
So it's not enough to go through the week, but it's enough to buffer it. So you know, and it's free. So I'm like, sure, I'll take them.
Yeah, the price is right.
The price is right, especially with food going through the roof now.
Well, yeah, hyperinflation and everything.
Yeah. Hyperinflation. Oh, you mean what happens when you overprint cash and just hand it out to everybody? Okay,
Yep.
gotcha.
Yeah, and then disincentivize people to work. But, did I say that?
Yeah.
So
and then have the nerve to tell companies that they should pay their employees more money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Back on topic. Something we haven't been on for I don't know what, like the last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So
well, you did watch the trailer, so
yeah, we just watched the trailer, so now we have to get back on topic. So
yeah, so the trailer gives you a synopsis of the War of the Tree Saga, which is a series of adventures or tales that were kind of like our first foray into the gaming world that I had created. And as you can tell, it's not like or at least from what was narrated, it's not like your typical Dungeons and Dragons like adventure. It's not like a bunch of murder hobos meet each other in a tavern and go and kill the dragon in a cave or something. Like there's an actual like a story. Part of what I was trying to pull in to make the game more like its unique facet was the concept of you're telling this story, this interactive story with freeform actors that are actually building that story as you play it, rather than just being a game. I mean, the idea is that it's like that old Navy commercial, with Keith David, where he's like, if somebody told a story about your life, would anybody want to read it or anybody want to hear it? Or yeah, that's what it was. It was, if anybody ever wrote a book about your life, would anybody want to read it? And that's kind of where the premise for this started was, how could this be something entertaining to watch, like those Saturday morning cartoons that I described? Something where even if you're not playing, you still get something useful out of it. And what I kind of pulled for references was I looked at what Tolkien did, The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that is I find it, I don't want to say an overwrought trope, but like Dungeons and Dragons is shamelessly borrowing from Tolkien. And Warhammer is shamelessly borrowing from Dungeons and Dragons, and Warcraft is shamelessly borrowing from Warhammer, and all this stuff. And it's like, well, what did Tolkien look at? Like, what was Tolkien's references? And in the Pelham Public Library, fortunately, they had an expansive amount of books on folklore and history and all this stuff. So I started researching, Welsh and Irish, Celtic, Gaelic, Icelandic, like the Volsung sagas by Snorri Sturluson, all these stories that were the inspirations for like Wagner's operas, which inspired Tolkien to look into these more Scandinavian mythologies to build his world. And that was where I went straight to the source, and I was like, oh, okay. And there's actually there's an old Welsh poem called Cad Gatho, which means the War of the Trees. And it's kind of, it's funny because a lot of Irish and Welsh and, the Celtic mythology was lost to the ages because most of it was committed to like oral history and not like written down the way that we get like the Roman histories. And as a result, a lot of it has been lost to time. And so we only get like little snippets of it here and there. And we don't know what the real story is. We only get like, philosophers or historians kind of accounts of the stories. And that's where I kind of pulled together, well, what if I could make my own kind of mythologies, my own universe or whatever, by using these kind of hidden or these like very rare or esoteric folklore, like I consulted something called the Kalevala, which is the I believe it was the Finland history of how the lands of Finland were conquered or settled, and obviously, like I said, the Volsung saga from Iceland, Beowulf, the old Anglo-Saxon stories, all that stuff, and I was like, oh, this would be kind of cool, where when you're borrowing from folklore, if it's one thing where people don't necessarily, they're not fully familiar with it. Like I may have just rattled off a bunch of stuff, and sure, some nerd will geek out like I did and go into it and find all of these references or whatever. But for the vast majority of people, they find it, if it's something that they're not familiar with, they're not going to go spend, years and years reading through all of these ancient manuscripts to figure out, oh, that's where he got that weapon, or that's where the dagger came from, or whatever, So I figured I tapped into something that Dungeons and Dragons and even Tolkien didn't, which was, these Welsh, these Celtic, these Gaelic myths and the folklore. And part of the universe that I created was kind of this world of two worlds, where there was the initial world that our story here takes place on, called Esperia. Like Esperides, the morning, the star of dawn or whatever, where the golden apples and all that stuff in Greek mythology takes place. But whatever. Obviously, that's where I get the historical context from. But it's this magical world where, how did the magic come about? Like nobody's ever really explored the origins of, like, these elves are obviously magical beings or whatever, but how did it start? How did they become these elemental, forest spirits or whatever? And that was kind of what we explored with the first story here. And we kind of tapped into, some Gaelic myths of things like well, actually, it was more of like the origin stories of like Hibernia, ancient Ireland, like the story of the Fovera, which were the first inhabitants of Ireland, these giants. And basically, in this story, in the first book, it's called Second Genesis. It takes place, or I should say, it begins with this royal family, these people that are eternally youthful. They've never had to suffer the infirmities of age or illness or anything, and they thought that life was just perfect for them. They were basically eternal children. I mean, it harkens back to things like Logan's Run. Everything was perfect, but there were dark sides, but they never really saw it. It's almost like an abused child that became an adult, where they never realized that they were abused until they started looking back and saying, that stuff that dad was smacking mom around with, that really wasn't right. So you start looking at those elements and, seeing this perfect world slowly disintegrate. And then these people that have had everything suddenly forced to fend for themselves in a very hostile world where they're not at the top of the food chain. And it was interesting seeing players play out these characters. Like our main hero is this, or I should say in this first book, because the story has a lot of revolving spotlights or limelights on heroes. Our first hero, Ashlyn, is this queen who, thought everything was fine. She's a pampered royal. Life was perfect. And then she got pregnant, which was a rarity because to the Elvar people, these are the elves, pregnancies were a rarity. Like, they almost never happened. You're eternally young, and it just seems really strange. If nobody dies of old age, like, you would just populate and populate and populate. So something has happened. These people just aren't very fertile. But now the story opens where suddenly everybody is fertile, and the queen gives birth to this her child. And in this society, the gods walk among their disciples. Like, there's actually a physical manifestation of these gods, these giants, these Fovera, and they have this lottery that they hold, just like in Logan's Run. You turn a certain age, you get in the lottery, the carousel, and you're gone. Mm-hmm. Well, in this, it's a matriarchal society, and the queen is the head of the sovereignty, and the king consort is kind of the second fiddle. And men are more expendable. They're more like, almost like an ant colony, or like bees. And as a result, the men are the ones that are placed into the lottery, where the women aren't. And obviously there's a flaw to that if, suddenly everybody's fertile. And the lottery is to be devoured by these gods. It was an honor. You're being returned to the gods that birthed your world, And unfortunately, the queen gives birth to this child, and something went wrong during the pregnancy, and she kind of slipped into this coma, started seeing weird shit, and when she awakened, she found out she had a son. And when her son was brought before the druids, the holy people of the society, he was given his name because parents don't name their children, the holy people do. And as soon as he was given his name, it was dropped into the lottery, and surprise, without giving away too much, we now have a queen that is questioning how perfect her little world is, and what kind of drastic measures she'll take to defend or protect her only son. So
one rule for thee, not for me.
Yep. That's, I mean, it's
all well and fine till it's your kid about to be sacrificed to the gods.
Yep. I mean, imagine what that would do to her subjects if, she decided to start shit with the gods and provoke their wrath. And it's like, it wasn't my kid that needed to die. Why do I have to be destroyed because you decided, now you're going to make a stand after it was your kid.
Yeah. And the freeze frame for the video makes it look like this shit's going down.
Yes. In fact, that's the War of the Trees. And the final line of the trailer was, these are the tales of the heroes that, basically they fought the wars that destroyed our world, and the ones that helped us find a new world. And in the tabletop game, the new world, the world that they discover, is a mundane world where magic does not exist. It's a historical parallel to our own Dark Ages. It's not Earth. It's a place called Munadea, and it's magic's not there. None of this stuff exists. But lo and behold, that stuff starts emerging into this world. So you have this, these immigrants, so to speak, coming to this world, causing, we didn't have dragons before. What the hell's going on? Maybe they should go back from where they came. So there was all sorts of, interesting commentary in there. And something I'd like to add to that is that, as a storyteller, especially somebody that loves like 90s stuff, like the stories in these comics, they're not preachy. I'm not creating a sermon. I'm not trying to tell you readers how to think. There's no distinct good. There's no distinct evil. Well, actually, there is a distinct evil, but you'll see it later on. But it's not my business or my job to tell people how to think, or like what they should think about these issues in the in the story. And ultimately, somebody may see the heroes as the villains and the villains as the heroes. And that's totally by design, because as the stories play out, things that you'd consider really wow, that doesn't seem like something good, or wow, that I can fully understand why that villain is doing what they're doing. That's fully justified. And it was interesting to see that, because a lot of them were being played by players, and these were real human beings controlling these characters with their own drives, their own goals. And, everybody wanted to win, so to speak. So there was none of this like, railroading you through the story. We didn't know at the time when we were creating this where it would necessarily go. I mean, we had story point cards, or the way that the game was set up is, there were directions you could go, but the outcomes themselves, the endings themselves were, it was several of them. There were multitudes of them. And what we're seeing in this comic is that path that was taken by these players. And, Ashlyn may not even survive until the final book, or her husband, the king consort that you see in that thumbnail there, Kaelin, he might not survive either, and the story spans generations too, because, the elves are these ever-lived, immortal by age beings. So, time can pass by quite differently. And people can get old and die before the elves even get facial hair.
Well, that would be terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, no facial hair.
Yeah.
So my first question is an obvious one. When I see that the flexible goal is 12K.
Mm-hmm.
Why is the flexible goal 12K?
Well, the flexible goal is 12K because that's what it cost me to get this book out. I guess when you lack the talent to do it yourself, I mean, somebody like Rini Draws who can blast this out herself, she doesn't need to pay artists to do this. I needed to pay artists because I'm putting out a 50-page full color book. I wanted to make it like the first, the trouble with first impressions is you only get one.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make it a big bang of a book rather than this is like what comes in the back of a Masters of the Universe action figure box. It's whatever, like something toss away. Like I wanted this to be grandiose, and I understand that it's a bit of an off-putting thing, but the actual kind of way that I had set this up was that anybody who's backed this project is guaranteed whatever perks they've selected. I mean, I wouldn't put my name, like that's literally my name out there. I'm not like, if I was planning on doing like the Mighty Number 9 guys or a certain literally who takes money and run, it probably wouldn't be a good idea to put your own name and face out on a product. So the book has already been produced. It's already developed. It's, I have the entire thing sitting here waiting to be printed. I'm just waiting for the quantities. And the kind of what I was hoping to use Indiegogo here for is to gauge interest and whether or not I should be continuing with this book, if there was any marketable viability in it. I mean, obviously, you don't want to create a whole bunch of series or whatever and nobody buys it. So I wanted to at least get out that first book, see if there's there's viability to it. People are like, wow, this is actually worth pursuing. I want to see what the next book is like. I'll be able to have that on hand and get it right into production, from that initial, or I should say right after that initial sale, to determine whether or not it's even worth pursuing. If nobody buys it, like as you can see, if we've got like 9 people and that's it, I mean, there is still a drive. I could do a second chance and all that stuff to continue to see if the initial wave of getting it into people's hands helps with like word of mouth. I've found that works especially well with video games, is that professional reviewers can't be trusted anymore. I mean, they're bought off by publishers. So a lot of word of mouth, or your friends play these games and they tell you, oh yeah, that's totally a good game, you should totally pick it up. That might actually help with the second chance campaign. But this initial one is I wanted to make sure that I at least left it open as much as possible for getting if there are interested people in this game, in this book, that I can provide it to them. And even though there is that lofty goal of the 12 grand, because like I said, that's what it costs for me to get the 50-page full color book. It's, even if it doesn't get met, like that notice to backers that you see right there at the bottom of the page, I got my name on this thing. I've already got the books already done. I'm just waiting for the quantities to print out and it's good to go. And with the way that I've set it up is I'm trying to get it into people's hands as quickly as possible. So the only thing that I'm waiting on is the printers rather than production. I've seen some Indiegogo campaigns where they're like, here's like 3 pages and 2 of them are done and this half one is like kind of done. And trust me, we'll get it done. And it's like, I would rather be, as a consumer, because I see myself as more than just a creator here. I see myself as a consumer because I geek out over this. I find it comforting when somebody's like, look, it's already done. I'm just trying to see if people even want this.
Yeah, I know a few publishers, like indie publishers, that like Roland Mann from Silverline. He won't launch a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo unless the book is 100% done and the crowdfunder isn't to back the book, because he's used the last 2 campaigns, one from each platform, to pay the artists and all the artist writers, inkers, flatters, all that. So all that money is to do is to cover the cost of printing and shipping, and then everything left over rolls into the next project.
Yep. That's pretty much what I'm hoping to do as well. I mean, one of the other things that that really bothered me when I worked in the gaming industry was this policy of we don't give credit to artists. That I found that extremely.
Oh yeah, I hate that because growing up loving comic books, it was years before they started giving full blown credit to like everybody in the book. And once that happened, I'm like, any book I looked in that had illustrations, if it was a illustration I liked, I'm like, who did the art on this?
Exactly.
I don't know. It doesn't say. Son of a bitch.
Yeah. How are you supposed to follow them? Like, yeah.
That of course is long before, social media was a thing where, there's QR codes inside the cover of every book. Here's the list of everybody. Just click follow all and you're done.
Yep.
And I'm just like, oh, it's crazy. So I just want to, because nobody can see this on the screen, but you can see the little pink Indiegogo neon sign notice to backers. Regardless if the campaign succeeds or not, all backers are guaranteed to receive their perks when the campaign ends. This campaign isn't to fund the book. It's to gauge interest, like you said, get on the ground floor of an epic fantasy series. Yeah, I've done some voice acting. Not very well, but I've done it. It's a 50-page count, full color. It all begins with the birth of an ill-fated son in the royal family. Can a mother's right overcome the god's might? Man, you're rapping. Laying down bars.
For shizzle.
Oh, don't do that again. The opening tale to War of the Tree Saga begins with a mystery uncovered from the fevered dreams of an ailing queen as her husband journeys across the deadly wilderness to find answers. Everything they knew about themselves and the history of their world is torn asunder. Wow, there's a lot of words in that paragraph that I haven't said in years. At least since I read some Shakespeare.
No.
Like, would you like to act? No. Why? Because there's no women in Shakespeare plays and everybody wears pantyhose. It's bad enough I had to do it when I played an elf in a school play in elementary school. Never again. The art is amazing, though.
Sweet. Yeah.
So let's talk about your interior artist.
So our two interior artists are Antonio Brandão from, I believe he's from Portugal. He's our inker and our penciler, and Alzir Alves, who is our colorist. I kind of colored a few pages myself. So there's some of my pages that are colored. There's some of his. He's a master of coloring, as you can see, and that's one of the gods sitting upon his throne, being served by his elven disciples.
Man, I need a chair like that where they just pour the alcohol into my goblet. I had to look twice because I didn't actually see the goblet. I thought they were just pouring it into the chair, and that he had a tap someplace, and he was just filling up a mug.
Do you remember Battlestar Galactica? Remember Baltar's chair?
Oh, yes.
There you go.
I remember it fondly. Matter of fact, I have the first edition DVD box of the original Battlestar Galactica, the one where the top of the box is a 3D mold of one of the Silent Centurion faces.
Nice.
And I forgot there were there's like 2 or 3 booklets in there with production stuff and everything. I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah, man, I loved Battlestar back in the day.
I remember there was a Battlestar thing on Cheerios boxes, and because Cheerios weren't an expensive or sugary cereal. My mother would buy them, and she would cut out box tops and get me like all kinds of like neat things that weren't costing her an arm and a leg. And one of the things came in a big box. It was like folded cardboard.
Whoa.
And it was a Viper cockpit.
Oh, damn.
It was a tabletop Viper cockpit. So it was like, obviously like all black on the outside. And then it had like little dials and it had like a little shift thing.
Oh,
but everything was up top. And I'm like, I would just sitting there, pretending to do a strafing run to my school so I wouldn't have to go back on Monday every weekend. It also got me drawing seriously for like the first time when I was little. And I got pretty good at drawing the Vipers.
Nice.
I was not good, however, drawing the Cylons. And my friends were like, how come you can't figure it out? You draw a circle and then you draw 4 lines and erase here and here. And you're done. I'm like terrible.
Man. Yeah, man, that one conical alien head gave me nightmares as a kid.
Oh, yeah. And this is where they're talking about birth. Like they're being birthed in pods on the tree.
Yep.
And these are the elves, right?
The origin story, supposedly, is that the gods, when they created the Elvar, or the elves, sowed these seeds that grew these massive trees, and then the fruit from the trees were the Elvar people, or that's how the origin myth is told.
Well, like in all these pseudo-alike games, like Warcrack and Neverwinter and many, many, many others. Anytime you play an elf or have to deal with like the elven area, there's always like this big, massive like tree of life in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a staple to that whole the whole elven story. No matter who wrote the book, it's kind of like, well, all the elves have a tree of life. Why do they call it that? We don't know. Make something up.
Well, I actually researched. I looked into kind of the origins for that, and unfortunately, like Warcraft or whatever went the Norse route, and they treated like Teldrassil as Yggdrasil, the world tree. But Yggdrasil is a Viking thing and has absolutely nothing to do with elves. Whereas there are other stories, and these books actually go into that a little more about why the elves are these almost plant-like elementals. They're spiritually bound to the forests and to like the wildlands and to the hills and prairies. And there's a reason for that. Like in some of the concept art, if you'd like, I can show. You'll notice the elves all have bare feet, and there's a reason for that. It's they need to touch the ground. Essentially, they don't like being in areas where there's stone, like you're seeing here, or deserts where it's lifeless. Like they're part of their being is to be in touch with the Earth Mother, with the ground and the nourishing soil. And it's actually kind of part of their story that gets better explored throughout the series. But I found that as an interesting kind of identifier that isn't really kind of looked at or explored in like other, like the Tolkien-esque elves. Like when I was designing these elves, I didn't like the fact that in other stories, they were basically just pretty people with problems, or they were like tall, some of them didn't even have pointed ears. Like the Tolkien elves didn't have pointed ears, or at least in the books, they were never described as having these big Vulcan-like ears or anything. That was actually more of an artistic kind of ad. They were just taller than men, and they looked pretty, and they didn't have facial hair.
I'm like, how many problems could an elf have? They're all freaking beautiful. None of them are overweight. I'm like, that's the dwarves that have all the ugly and the overweight thing. And
Yeah.
and I'm like, I want to be an elf.
Yeah.
People
I
are like,
know.
well, elves. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't have to follow the path.
Yeah.
I just want to be pretty.
I know. Life is so much easier as a hot chick. But like I wanted to make these elves kind of have their own unique identity in that the elves that you see here, the Alvar, are actually a precursor to the elves that are played in the game. And the reason for that is something happens in the War of the Trees that causes a massive schism in the elves. And as a result, the elves split into divergent kind of, I don't want to say factions so much as ethnic identities, something they've never had before.
Mhm.
Elves were always pretty much just elves, you know. They were basically the eternally young, pretty people. But that was a lot of that had to do with magic. And the problem with magic is that it's chaos and you can't control chaos. So any type of just minor nudge and things can go terribly wrong. And what happens to the elves, throughout the course of the War of the Trees, is they don't remain the elves that you start the story with. They're thoroughly messed up. These are basically protected, pretty children who have been thrown out into the highway and told to go play in traffic. You know, they're not all coming home, and they basically go through the rigors and they come out as a different people, or I should say, several different people. And if you've ever seen like the Dark Crystal, if you recall, the Skeksis were not the original race of beings.
Mhm.
The original beings were split into two groups, the ancients and the Skeksis. Well, that's so too is with these elves. They all split, they become divergent. And they start having basically civil wars, things they've never had before. And it kind of explains like what we're seeing with the War of the Trees is kind of their discovery and abuse of magic. And, is magic really a good idea? Well, you've basically given, a toddler the button to the nukes. The outcome is probably not going to be all that fantastic.
Not at all.
So yeah.
This is book one.
Mm-hmm.
How many issues going forward would like the War of the Trees be?
The War of the Trees was 10 50-page books in all.
Wow.
It was a long campaign, but it sussed out a lot of the history and set the foundations for the rest of the stories. And it actually is an origin story for one of the main heroes of the kind of the game's history. And what we're seeing here is kind of the beginnings of kind of when the shit goes wrong. We're seeing the standard, oh look, they've got weapons and they're all in pretty armor and they're all whatever. But as the story progresses, we start seeing them lose that light, lose that protection, and start facing the harshness of reality. Like that line in the story, eventually everyone must grow up, even the eternally young. Mm-hmm. And I've been told that, and again, I'm not going on what I was saying is I want people to take whatever they want from this story. I'm not telling them what symbolism means. Like I know with Tolkien, he was approached with people saying that the ring represented nuclear, the atom bomb, and he's like, no, that's not. It's about a ring. Like, you're adding your own context, and you're putting words in my mouth. That's not what I said. And essentially, in this story, I've had people remark on when they were reading it, going, so this has a lot of kind of underpinnings of like the Judeo-Christian book of Genesis, the expulsion from the Garden of Eden. And I've had other people say, this is in a weird way, this reminds me of losing my innocence as a child and becoming an adult for like the first time. So that's what, some of the people have taken away from it. Whether or not you or anybody else that reads it takes that from it is, it's up to you.
Yeah, we tend to add stuff where there's no stuff.
Yeah, or there is, but it's it's entirely up for your own interpretation.
Yeah, and you have to read. You have to keep reading all the way through the 10th book to figure out what's really happening in the first one.
Well, I mean, if it is successful enough, I would love to do an omnibus, where we get the entire volume of the War of the Trees in one book. But initially, this is the primer. This is the first book to get you interested, or to see if there is interest in this story, and if you want to continue reading it. And hell, I mean, I got people playing it for 8 years, so they seem to be pretty happy with it.
Gamers don't have lives, you know that.
How can you kill that which has no life?
They all try to get jobs that pay just enough to keep them above water, and so they're close enough to their local game and hobby shop so they can go home, shower, change, feed the pet, say hi to their other, and run out the door and play Magic and D&D and Warhammer and anything else they can find an excuse to not be home for.
Well, that's you hit on something that I kind of like to kind of reiterate, which was that escapism. Like that was another reason why I kind of grabbed these stories from a teenager writing them instead of the cynical adult in me, because I found that there was something about those stories from the 90s that allowed us to have more escapism than these modern stories that infuse like modern day politics or modern day events. And I didn't want to muddy the waters. When I was presenting these stories, I wanted them to be distilled down to what I enjoyed as a kid. Because like I said, I'm a consumer, so I would like to see that return to escapism. I'm paying just enough to get home, play Magic the Gathering, play D&D or whatever, because my day-to-day life isn't exactly the greatest. So this is my release from that.
And tabletop RPGs are usually the cheaper way to go.
Oh yeah, dice, pencil, paper.
Yep. I got this will tell you that I'm a gamer. I have a Crown Royal velvet bag full of dice.
All the shapes in the world.
Tell me you're a gamer without telling me you're a gamer.
Rattle.
I have an empty Crown Royal bag.
Yeah.
I also from my local game store when they first brought them out, they had the snappable 4-corner dice trays.
Oh yeah.
And they had the ledges, and they're made of the pleather, and the inside has a nice color, and you could choose blue or red. I always go with blue. I like blue. It's the color of my balls. I do stand up, but I'm in a wheelchair, so I need a ramp. So I bought that, and it had the logo for the game store done, like inlaid to the felt in the middle. And then they had also gotten a whole bunch, like a full set of D&D dice, full sets of D&D dice in various colors that were glow in the dark. And I'm like, yes.
Glow in the dark dice, that's a win.
Did you ever roll those dice? No. But I took them all out of a thing and I put them in the tray and I left them under a lamp. And then I went to bed and I left them there again for a second day. And then I brought him into my room at night. And I was like, ooh.
Yeah. And that's the shadow that it left on the wall.
Yes. What happened? Dead goblin.
Yeah.
Dead goblin. Where'd you find a goblin? I mean, ex-wife. But when I actually played in Discord, there wasn't any of that. They had an actual dice roll channel that they had set up. So you would basically type in the coding for rolling a dice. It was like, a D6, this is that, and there would be like a space or a comma or a slash, whatever. And so all the dice rolls were, random through there. And it was amazing how many times I critically rolled a 1.
Oh, nat 1.
Yeah. I'm like, and every once in a while I would roll good. And if I was having a good roll night, it was a very much needed good roll, like, fighting like 5 frost giants plus their pet wolves at the same time. And, it's like, what are you going to do? I go, what do you think I'm going to do? He goes, fireball. Mm-hmm.
Fireball, where you have to kill every last motherfucker in the room.
Yeah. He goes, do you want to roll to see if you can find out if anything in this room is flammable? Fuck it. No. He goes, there's torches on the wall, so there might be some flammable liquid in here.
Oh, like
not next to me. Not next to me. Let's go.
Nice.
It's like, he goes, okay, well, you can cast one spell, and then because you have this, you can do another action, which can be another spell. I'm like, okay. So fireball, and then erect a firewall. Not the computer kind either, but and it's like, those go this far. I go, yep. What's the circumference of the room? Not that far. So I take out a couple walls. Who cares? It's good, But we had a blast. I played for like 7-8 months.
Nice.
On like a Neverwinter campaign.
That's pretty cool.
We almost got eaten by like 3 different dragons. Everything we needed to complete another part of a quest, we had to like fork over to the dragons. But we need that. Relax. We're gonna go here. We're gonna do this, this, and this, and then we're gonna come back. We're gonna kill this motherfucker. So this is one of the variant covers by Michelle Hofner.
Michelle worked for Blizzard and Riot Games. She does some amazing work, especially if you like cheesecake, like the hot girls. She is a master of that.
I like both kinds of cheesecake.
Yep, same here. I love her use of color, and she's definitely knows anatomy. So I had asked her to, commissioned her to do one of the variants, and this is our kind of our first one, which shows kind of the alien world of Vesperia, where you see the ringed moon Thea, which is present in both the day and night skies, and notice the skies are purple instead of blue. Mm-hmm. So it's just to reinforce that it is a different world.
Beautiful color work, though.
Yeah, I love her work. She's an amazingly talented artist.
Speaking of Blizzard, I am in possession of the comic book that Blizzard bought from comic creator Martin Dunn and artist Javier Lugo. That became Overwatch.
Oh, nice.
I'm pretty sure I'm not supposed to be in possession of that book. They supposedly bought them all, and mine is not just that book, but it's an error because the printer forgot to print like 2 pages.
Oh, so it was like a yoink.
They printed up like 2 dozen of them to go to, to set up at a table, I think at MegaCon years and years ago. And, all the scouts from everywhere would travel around to all the conventions to see if there was an IP that they wanted to develop and, just buy them out. And they did. And I've got it here, and it's also got a sketch on the back cover of one of the main characters by Javier, and it's signed by both Martin and Javier.
Nice.
So it's like, do you ever want to sell that? Not really. But if you did, Six figures would be nice.
Yeah, finance my trip to Bora Bora.
Not even. Just finance my trip to Maine so I can eat some good lobster. Lobster.
That's chowder. Chowder, I'll kill you.
Chowder.
New Englanders, gotta love our accents.
Red or white? White. The other stuff's not chowder.
Yeah.
The other stuff is what the New Yorkers make. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're seeing now is the second variant cover done by Gonzalo Genzoman Ordonez. Sorry if I butchered your last name, Genzoman. But he's a pretty prolific artist online. Like if you just type Genzoman in Google Images, you'll see his work everywhere. The guy is just like, he is omnipresent in fantasy art online. He's a digital artist master. And
I'm just looking at the dragon and be like, yeah, they're not ready for this.
Yeah. This is the it's kind of a it's a collage of events that happen in the story, and unfortunately, they were not ready for that.
I mean, I really love the design on the elf spears.
Cool.
It makes me think a little bit of the high-end monkey guards from Wizard of Oz when they were marching with like the Russian garb on, because apparently it was wintertime, and they had those long spears that they were like ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. It reminds me a little bit of that, but with like obvious dramatic flair, because they're elves.
Well, the all of the weapons that you see and all the armor and everything is it's actually in game. It has mechanics and everything. And if you notice, all of the metal that the elves have is kind of a yellowish tinge. It's not there's no ferrous metal in this world, and that's part of the mythology of elves, is that iron and iron alloys like steel are offensive to the elves. It's like touching it makes them feel like they just bit into a fork, or scratch their nails across the slate or a chalkboard or something. And silver is poisonous to them. So
Good to know.
Yeah,
Wow.
so they use a metal or a colchum, or basically bronze or brass, occasionally copper. But that's kind of the another element.
No gold.
Well, I mean, gold is a very malleable and heavy material, so it's good for ornamentation and laminating. But
nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, like if that spear.
It's a soft metal. I don't think it'll go good on an arrow tip.
Yeah. Well, the weapon that he's wielding, the glaive, is it's kind of like a very one of the things that also kind of stuck out when I started looking into the elves of other fantasy worlds, is that they had all of the same stuff as every other race. Like they were basically just humans. They had swords, they had, horses, they had, all these things that there really wasn't much of a distinction to make them kind of like separate themselves from the other races. Like I really didn't start seeing that, honestly, until Warcraft, believe it or not. That was one of the things I think they really did well, which was, first off, they didn't make the elves pussies. Like their elves were these buff guys with huge shoulders, and they were, but they were a unique race within themselves. You could look at that and go, okay, that is a Warcraft elf, and that's kind of what we're doing here as well. Like the entire weaponry, the arms and armor of the Elvar people, you could tell just by looking at it. It has a very visually distinct look. That is an elfin clatha, which is a double-bladed sword that the elves use, or they have this weird kind of T-shaped, almost like a nightstick, or a what they call a tonfa style dagger called a huirin, which is Gaelic for blade or blades. So looking at them, they have their own unique style of weaponry and combat and martial arts that makes them stand out. So when they are introduced into a world with, you know, Vikings and men of the Far East or whatever, They definitely stand out. They're not somebody where you're like, oh look, that's that's just a really frail or a wafy guy, with long hair. No, it's like, no, that guy definitely looks like an elf. His anatomy is different. He's got bare feet. He's got weird weapons. He has an aversion to ferrous metals. So it was something we were building into the aesthetic of the elves.
And they have no idea how to fight dragons.
Here are a few of the add-on perks.
The add-on perks. Two-sided limited poster. This poster features variant cover artwork, one on each side. Frame not included. This is shipped in a cardboard tube to prevent creasing. Very good. And pretty big posters. 19 by 27.
Yep.
Once people get that, they need to get one of those frames that they would use at a movie theater.
Yeah.
So you can see it on either side, and just like, hang it up in like the middle of your room somewhere, in your man cave or something, off like dividing an aisle or something for your comics, and so you can see it on both sides. Be like, ooh, you have that cover? Uh-huh. Yeah, that one? Uh-huh. Technically, I have them both because I have the poster.
Well, one of the things that we were trying to do with it is I have a friend who, believe it or not, was actually a player in this, who runs his own comic shop in Pelham, Next Gen Comics. And I've reached out to a whole bunch of comics in New England, comic shops, and I was like, trying to get the word out for this. How could I promote this? I'll send you a free poster or whatever. And I believe these posters would work really well in a window, because you see it on the outside as one of the cover art, and then you go inside and you'll see the other. So
yeah, and then they can trick people that just drive by the place, and they can flip it like every other week or something.
Yeah. Whoop. Yeah.
Collectible cards.
Oh yeah.
We're going back to cards. Uh-oh. Collectible Cards Series 1. Now, are these just trading cards, playing cards?
So they're the size of American poker cards. In fact, if you hold on a second, I could actually, I got them in the other room. I can bring them in.
Sure.
Or you could just watch the little video.
Oh, okay. Well, let's do that. That's easier.
All right.
Shiny.
Infinitale Chronicles, the War of the Trees.
Thank you, Cersei.
Fancy.
So yeah, the cards are American poker sized, and they're made out of plastic. They're not made out of paper, so they've got that durability to them. And they are hyper glossy. And on one side, you've got the concept art done by Zedge or Zach, an Australian artist who's absolutely brilliant. I mean, he's been the one to help me shape kind of the aesthetic for our character designs. So you've got his work on the cover of the card, and then you flip it over on the back. There's a pronunciation guide because, Irish, Gaelic, Welsh names, they don't seem to spell the way that they are pronounced. So there's a pronunciation guide for everybody's name. And there's a brief bio about them, so you don't have to juggle the characters. Each book will have their own kind of update to these characters, so you'll see them progress as the stories fold out. New characters come in while old ones die, and they'll change throughout the story. So you'll get newer cards with different representations of them. And in addition to that, it also shows like what faction they belong to, and they're numbered and so on.
Very cool. Now, are they shiny the way they look in the video?
Yes, they are very shiny.
People like shiny stuff.
Yeah, I opted for the glossy only because when I used a kind of an online printing source for them that actually makes trading cards, like Magic the Gathering cards and stuff. And some of the samples I got, I tried standard, glossy, and then super gloss. And I ended up going with the super gloss because the sample they gave me, the colors really pop. It's a strange thing. You think that if it was matte, the colors would be more visible, but for some reason, the hyper gloss just made them like pow. So I was like, okay, go in this route. It's a bit more expensive, but I think they look a lot better.
Yeah, they almost look like they were foil cards.
Well, that was one of the other options I wanted to do, but to keep expenses down, kind of on the first book.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, what I'm hoping to do in future installments is throw a rando foil card into the next the next series, so that you'll get a random foil card included, because there is a bonus card that's included in your trading cards. So you get the 8 cards. You get a initial card that just talks about the War of the Tree Saga. You get the 3 cover cards. So you get the standard cover and the 2 variant cards. You get all the hero cards. So there's actually 4 heroes that are outlined in the cards. And then on top of that, you get a 9th card, which is a bonus card that comes from the game itself. And the thing about it is, I mean, you're going to love this reference. Be sure to drink your Ovaltine.
Oh, God.
The card is a skill card from the game for the language of Slithrith, which is the language of the dragons, which is the language of the ancients, essentially. And interspersed throughout the book, there are statues or whatever that have this language written on it. And then there are characters that may, not speak what the heroes speak. And the person who has this card can actually decipher what that person is saying to them. So it kind of gives you that nifty little meta.
They can read the pseudo hieroglyphics on the statues and the mounts, and they can actually speak to the dragons like, please don't eat me.
I will give you gas. No, so yeah, I figured that was that would be a kind of a nifty little perk, because throughout the game, we've done that. For example, there were languages for casting magic. Like the magic in this world is scary and dangerous. It's not like Dungeons and Dragons where it's technology. Like, people are afraid to cast spells because if you mess it up and you botch a spell, there's dire consequences. I mean, you can try to mitigate those consequences, or even try to reduce the odds of it happening by keeping yourself protected while you're performing your spells, because you have a gesture component and you have a verbal component. And you mentioned you liked Conan the Adventurer, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember what's his name? There was Sasha and Misha, the 2 wolves, and the wizard.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the wizard would say when he cast spells?
No.
That was all Latin.
I watched like an episode like 2 weeks ago. And then every time I go back to it, I see something else that just, every time I see a certain movie with the that was out of the Robert E. Conan library, it's really bad, but I really like it.
Yeah. So bad it's good.
Guilty pleasure movie. And I'll be scrolling and I'll be like, ooh, Solomon Kane.
Yeah.
It's a terrible movie. I love this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love Solomon Kane. But yeah, it's like, I would say that was pretty much what a lot of the kind of the modern takes on what's his face there, Van Helsing was.
Yeah.
And it's like, nah, why don't you just do Solomon Kane? The source material is amazing.
Yeah, and it's the same actor. So
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
yeah. I know it's what's his face from The Crow or from Aliens Resurrection.
Yeah.
But
So
oh, sorry.
So the base goal is 12K, and everything beyond that is a stretch goal.
Yep.
Starting at 15K, and then every 5K after that, and it builds all the way. There's stuff built in all the way to 105K.
Yeah, and like I tried to explain in the kind of my blurb leading up to that in the text is that it's lofty, it's probably unattainable, but the idea is to give viewers a full picture of that. They understand that there is a actual like solid foundation here. This isn't me making stuff up or winging it as we go along. This isn't the Star Wars sequel trilogy where they're just pulling it out of their ass as they as they go. We have all of the stories already written. All of the books are already there. They're just waiting to be basically produced. And ultimately, I financed this first book out of my own pocket. And the reason why I turned to crowdfunding was because that harsh reality kicked in when I was like, this costs more than my car. So it was, I can't really do this on my own, out of my own pocket. And, it became well, if there's interest in it, if people will actually, have enough interest to buy it, then of course, that type of financial subsidy would, like you were saying earlier, would be rolled into the books. So anything beyond this campaign's initial goal is going to be rolled into enriching future projects. And of course, the stretch goals will be knocked off as they're achieved, and then the new campaign will begin without those stretch goals because they've been met. I just wanted to at least give the viewers that understanding that there is a clear vision here. This isn't somebody who's just like, if I get around to it, this isn't going to be like George R.R. Martin, who never finishes his damn series, or like I'd mentioned with J.J. Abrams.
Hey, Mike Jimmy. Mike is another comic creator from the Netherlands, the creator of Life on Korra.
Cool, the Netherlands. Very cool.
So the first stretch goal is the Spanish book translation option.
Yes. I wanted to make this book as appeal to as many people as possible. And in America here, the second most spoken language is Spanish. So I figured Spanish would be a good route to pursue. And hablo español, pero sino que muy poquito. So I figured, I have a lot of friends that speak it. It might be worth giving it to them in a language that they speak.
Opposed to myself, who only knows "Yo quiero Taco Bell."
No quiero morir.
And the 20K is the War of the Trees Book 2.
Yep.
Okay, so explain, if you hit 20K, that means that you're going to produce Book 2.
Correct.
Okay. And you're still going to run a campaign for it, but you're guaranteed to produce Book 2.
Yep. Again, we're hitting for that interest, seeing if people are actually, because this is the ground floor. We want to see if there are people that are interested in investing at that level and being like, I really liked the first book, or I'm liking what this first book, is telling me. I'd like to see the second book in the series. And if the second book is funded in the first book's campaign through stretch goals, I actually wouldn't. I would roll it into like the next campaign would be for the third book, because we wouldn't need a campaign for the second book. I would just make that an on-demand, at a reduced rate, no less.
So it would just be automatic and available through your website.
Yep.
At a sizable discount.
Yep. You funded it. I mean, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
you got in, you helped us out. You deserve, some type of recognition for that, including, cha-ching, here you go. Here's the book that people will be paying more money for.
25K Collectible Cards Series #2 add-on perk.
Yep. Just like with Series 1, you'll get characters for the second book. Each book has its own unique set of, I shouldn't say a unique set of heroes, because obviously the heroes from the first book continue into the second book. But like I had said, as the story progresses, characters change, they develop differently. Some of them die. Nobody's safe in the book. So there's always that. There's, I mean, I'm not going to say who's going to die, but let's just say that people being, represented on covers and stuff might not make it to the end of the series. That is a billing goal. Yeah, I've received some feedback on like running this, because like I had mentioned, I have more experience on the back end. I'm producing the book, writing the book, wrangling artists. I've actually been kind of a quasi art director for one of the studios that I worked for when I was in the gaming industry, and it almost feels like it's very different from the crowdfunding comic book style, where in video game development, you want to get that game out and it has to be that big bang right out the door. It's your first impression. That's where you're going to get your most amount of backing, your most amount of interest or investment in it, and then it slowly peters off. Whereas some of the feedback that I've received is crowdfunding is almost the opposite of that, where you're doing a slow burn in, where you're giving them tasty little morsels, and it eventually builds into a bigger, bigger main course.
It's like laying out all the Reese's Pieces for ET.
Yeah, ooh, piece of candy.
Mm. That's why you have type 2 diabetes, Will.
Don't.
So I see like every other stretch goal is another book unlocked.
Yep.
And opposite ones are add-on perks. So when you get to the checkout, once these are unlocked, you can go in and you can add them on. So they'd still have to buy the card set, but it would be tell me how you're working this now.
So the add-on perks, obviously they exist in addition to the standard perks. I actually, again, on advice of somebody from, that I had showed this to, we had created a bundle at the very top. I think it's the featured bundle that gives you the standard book with the add-on perk bundled together, so you don't have to add that add-on perk at checkout. It's already there.
Okay. So yeah, I was reading that wrong, because of course Indiegogo has add-ons. So if you back one tier, but there's other pieces of the puzzle that you want, and they're available individually, you can still purchase them at regular price. Say you don't want to buy the tier that has one of everything in it, but you want this, and that, then you can put them on as add-ons and just purchase them at checkout. And you're saying when these unlock, people are just going to automatically get them.
Yeah, well, basically, what this will do is it'll create those bundles so that they can buy a bundle that it contains, and the bundles will be limited, obviously, because a lot of these add-on perks are limited in quantities. I mean, like, for example, the double-sided posters, those aren't exactly cheap to make. They're big.
I know. Yeah.
And double-sided, and the thing is my entire dining room right now is just filled with those rolls. So, yeah, it's showing everything. Smart move. Thanks. I want to make sure that people understand, what this product is from the onset, rather than having any surprises. Because I find that, if you're getting something and then all of a sudden something else appears and you're like, what the hell? I already bought this. I don't want to buy this again and get like whatever, whatever else. It's more of a, here's everything that I'm hoping to achieve with this product. Whether or not this will be achieved in a stretch goal, really it doesn't matter. It's just here to show you the roadmap for this product.
So all the add-on perks are just going to be all extra stuff that you're going to get if that stretch is hit, and all the book 2 through 10s and beyond are ones that'll be available to purchase at a lesser rate through the website.
Correct, and we might even include them in as on demand on Indiegogo, so that when we're running the campaign for, say, book 3, but book 2's stretch goal was achieved, book 1 and book 2 will be available on demand, and book 3 will be the campaign to finance.
Okay, yeah. I can see that. So $25K is series 2, and then 30 would unlock book 3. And it goes back and forth. 35K is the card series number 3.
Yep. It goes all the way up to series 10.
And that's what I want to see you hit, is the 100K, because that would make it available so I could just buy the War of the Trees Volume 1 books 1 through 10 hardcover omnibus edition.
Yep.
And of course, 105K would get you all 10 sets of the collectible cards bought in a special box, of course.
Yep.
And boom, yeah.
Yes. Is the first book done? The first book has been completely produced. I self-financed it. We actually have it sitting at the printers. It's already in PDF, sitting at the printers, waiting for quantities. So based on how many people back this and how many perks are actually ordered, that'll be how many are printed, and we'll get it out as soon as we can. I figured it would be a better move to, at least for this first book, to at least have consumer confidence where we're actually giving, the book is done. We're not asking for backing on something that's an idea. We're asking for an interest. It's to gauge interest in whether or not this completed book is something that you would like to continue seeing more of. So like I said, I financed the first book, and I found the harsh realities of I don't have the money to finance the second, third, fourth, all the way through the 10th book, because the first book cost more than my car to produce. That's probably saying that I'm driving a shitbox, but that little Nissan, it got me where I need to go. So that's all that matters to me.
I was gonna be a smartass, and I was gonna be close to that. I was like, are you driving a 72 Datsun?
I'm driving a Ford Pinto.
Oh God. I saw somebody paint up a Ford Pinto as no, not a Ford Pinto, a Gremlin. Somebody painted up a Gremlin as the General Lee, and they called it the Dollar General.
Nice. If I brought some additional art, if you would like to see it, I can share my screen.
Share your screen, and we'll come back to that one and run through the tiers at the very end.
So all right. So this is what we're seeing here is my website for the Infinitale Chronicles, all the way up to, as we can see, these books are not produced yet, but the first one is, and gives you a little blurb about who the heroes are, introduces you to the world of Vesperia. But more or less, this will be available on the campaign, more outlining the campaign stuff. What we got in the library? That's where I was. But what I wanted to show you was, so as we were discussing the kind of the card series, here we have all the cards that you get in book one. What's not shown is that bonus ninth card that you get where you can decipher the Slithrith language that's displayed throughout the book. But we have Ashlyn, Kaelin, Darwen, Galina, the initial cover created by Antonio and Alzir. And here is Michelle's card and Genzo Man's card. And then, to be determined at a later date. I have these cards completed. I just don't want to show them at the moment because you'd be like, oh, that's a spoiler. So what else do we have here? Some of the covers. And as I had mentioned, I'm a firm believer in giving credit to the artists. So I label all of my covers with the names of the artists. And this one was done by Gonzalo, or Genzo Man, as he's known online. And this is variant cover 2. We've got this massive three-headed Hydra here. Ashlyn looking confused, exasperated, and then Kaelin with his Elvar soldiers battling something that will probably kill them all. And next one is, here is one by Michelle, and it appears to be an Elvar of some sort, emerging from some type of vortex, and it doesn't look like Kaelin. I mean, he's got these weird tattoos on his face. His hair's slightly different, and good God, what has happened to this gauntlet or his hand?
I don't know, but that's badass.
And he's got this crystalline staff that's glowing. So clearly this is some type of heroic or villainous figure. Let's see the next one. Here's Michelle's variant cover 1, where we have Ashlyn. And she's got the moon looming in the background, the purple sky, and Kaelin resolute in the foreground. So here's one by Owang Xing. He's one of my other favorite artists. I had asked to him when I commissioned him to do this. This is actually a visual representation of the origin of the series. This is me and my friends playing in the Pelham Public Library's children's room basement, playing the game that we developed, that I created, Infinitale, and this is them as their characters. Myself as a dwarf, a couple of elves that you see here, and if you notice, these elves look a bit different than the Elvar that we had previously showcased. This scary-looking cat person thing, this kind of insidious-looking girl with a dagger, some type of monk rolling dice, and this punk kid with a weird-looking bronzes brass sword that's got a dragon motif to it. So yeah, this was what we were using to represent the game.
Oh, I didn't see the sword. I thought he had some kind of weird mullet going on. I didn't see the hilt of the sword.
Yeah, he doesn't. These characters are not actually represented in the War of the Trees. They come much later in one of the other sagas. But it's still interesting to see characters from that later era. And here is the religious figure of the archdruidess of the Seelie, or the Light Elves. Again, saying what I had mentioned earlier about how the Elvar do not remain intact after the events of the War of the Trees, and there's a great schism that splits them apart into kind of multiple ethnic identities. And the Light Elves here have retreated to the Shrouded Isles of is it the Faeskov? I believe that's what it's called, where they kind of plot their dominion over Munadea, the world that they've invaded. So this is the religious kind of faction. They're all got this giant harpy eagle and interesting looking staff that you might see make an appearance in the War of the Trees. And this character might actually be in the War of the Trees, but she might look a bit different. And that was done by Tira Kietzungden, or Pearl Pencil. You can find her on DeviantArt, amongst other places. She's an amazingly talented artist. I believe she's in Canada.
Oh, that's a shame.
Another art piece from Tita is the Last Stand, which was an event in the story where, if you notice, these elves also look a bit different than the Elva. They seem to be kind of attuned more to frost and ice, and they are the Unseelie, the dark elves. And this is a certain dwarf heroic figure's last stand, where all of his comrades are dead, and he faces death honorably, making his final blows against the dark elves in their own kind of domain.
There's a joke in there somewhere about blowing elves. I don't know what it is.
Also, just to show some of the cards for the game that we're developing, these were also done by Owang Xing.
Oh, those are gorgeous.
These are the class cards for the spellcaster archetype, where you have what we had previously seen with the druid, where she's got her what is it, I can't remember what the spiritual animals are called. I'll have to look it up, but there's a specific name that they use for their conjured ghostly like animals. Oh, the tulpa, that's what it is. They can conjure a totemic tulpa of the various animals that they've become attuned with. And we have the priest class, a magus, which is, if you notice, even though he's wizardly, he looks very scholastic. And there is a reason for that, because in the game world, in the events following the War of the Trees, something really bad happens with magic, and an order of nemesis, as they called it, or the order, was formed to regulate magic and to make it something it's very rare. It's not something that you don't see wizards walking around in cities, or +3 toothbrushes of hygiene, or any of this magic stuff that you see in like a lot of like Dungeons and Dragons. Magic is a very scary and esoteric art, and the regulation is almost mandatory, because things go wrong really quickly when you tamper with the factors of chaos. And this order regulates magic and sanctions spells, and allows them to be experimented on, and allows them to be kind of codified. And if you break the rules of the order, then you are subject to a Magi's March, which is where the order actually, because the order exists outside of the sphere of mundane laws, the order takes things very seriously, and will actually have a hunt and hunt you down and kill you. So
kind of like when you come home late and lie to your wife.
Yeah. Well, the scary part about it is that with all these wizards and stuff, there's obviously corruption involved, where you'll have certain people that are allowed to cast certain spells, or there's indulgences, or there's licenses, or things that you can buy to allow you to break the rules, so to speak. So there is that political element to it, which is funny. But yeah, the wife analogy, so I didn't do that. You just leveled a city. Whatever. And then there's something called low magic, which is, unlike spellcasting, the shamanic magic are more about alchemy and herbalism and things of that sort. And they're throughout different cultures. So we have here one of the races, the Nabari, which are very attuned to magic. They exist outside of the order, essentially. They're almost enemies of the order, in that they think the rules are bullshit, and that all of these politics are just there to kind of screw over everybody and keep the powerful in power, and screw over the little guys. So the shamans of the Nabari are very powerful enchanters as well, and there's a lot of symbiosis between magi and the shamans, because magi can create these the phylacteries, these components that can hold mana or spells that the enchanters could then use to enchant items. And it's funny because some of the most powerful spellcasters that we've had in our game were not magi; they were actually shaman or pellers or whatever other terms the various ethnic groups call the shamans. So it was cool seeing low magic, best high magic, where you have this character that's 100% dependent on props, but he's made all of those props. They're all enchantments. And then you have the magus, who's basically, relying solely on his scholastic learning and his memorization of spells. So it was an interesting contrast. And then the final spellcaster class that we see here represented is the Warden, which is kind of like a fighter mage, the old standby that's, the jack of all trades, master of nothing, where he's obviously got access to the war harp, which is a multi-stringed bow that can make use of different ranges and speeds with archery. And he's dressed in forest-like camouflage that kind of eschews the ferrous metals that we see in traditional iron and steel. The elves have a aversion to iron, and silver is poisonous to the Fey folk, so they avoid stuff like that. So you'll see a lot of natural elements rather than steel and the metal men. Let's see. Do I have? Oh, yeah. Here in the concepts, just to talk about the weapons here, we had mentioned earlier the glaive, which is an Alvar lance. Some of the game mechanics for it, the weirin here, or the short blades, and then the chlethau, or the double sword, that you'll see makes a prominent use in the War of the Trees. There's a couple of martial arts or weapon skills that the elves practice that it's very different or distinct from what the races of men or the races of the wee folk use. So you'll see different kind of, even though you have a weapon, you can actually use it differently based on your skill of that weapon. Here's a concept piece that was given. This was done by Zed Edge or Zach. A couple of our character designs that were given to our comic artists, showing kind of the various arms and armor, the weapons, a height comparison size, and as we can see, some variants here. We have Queen Ashlyn here, pregnant, Queen Ashlyn here, not pregnant. A couple of the fluorite style weird stones, as they're called, and the glaive and the weir in here. So
the Galliner looks badass, though.
Yeah, the satyr, the chieftain. Yeah, he was a cool character. He definitely. I know some of the players, or at least one of them, said like, "Yeah, I'm the heart of the book." So who knows? He might
until we kill you.
Yeah. I don't. I see a couple of them wearing red shirts. Just saying.
It's not going to end well.
Let's see, what else do we have? Here's just a quick overview of the races. So we have the race of men.
Oh wow!
The race of wee folk, the race of elves, the race of satyrs, and the race of Wesen. And the different gender makeups of them. We have the men of the kingdom, the Yalkani, the kind of Celtic / Native American inspired plainsmen, the wild men. Mm-hmm. We have the free men, which were my favorite, the Shabanish, or the people of the free cities of Nasha'ab, or the Spur. They basically were once a mighty empire that was toppled by a slave army revolution called the Amluks. And the Amluk uprising obliterated the empire and forced in democracy. And you think that sounds nice because democracy is great and everything, but it's been perverted here, where the city-states are fragmented, and there's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of gangsters, and a lot of organized crime. Then we have the imperial men, the people of the Great Empire, or the Empire of Great Fusang in the Far East. These people are isolationists. They believe everybody outside their empire's walls or borders are barbarians and really don't want anything to do with anyone. And then, as I had mentioned before, the Nabari, these were the first men of the world who were actually subjugated by the proto freemen or the proto Shabanish, the people of the Dindori Empire, and they were the ones to revolt, and they ended up becoming masters of magic thanks to the arrival of certain people.
And the Shabanish did something very, very bad, apparently. All the men have to wear hand-me-downs from MC Hammer.
Can't touch this.
Ba, 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 ba.
And then we have the Sindra, the dwarfs. And when we were looking at character designs, I didn't, I loved the idea of the cute race. And, when we were, talking about these, when we were building these, there always had to be that adorable race. And it's something that not everybody plays or anybody has, an interest in. But there are people that do like the childlike races. And we didn't want to use Hobbit because that's a Tolkien thing, and we didn't want to use the lazy knockoff of Halfling, which is what D&D ended up doing, or even gnomes or anything like that. So I looked into Norwegian and Swedish and other Scandinavian mythology, and I came across the Tomtar, and the story of the cobbler and the elves.
Yeah,
that's actually Tomtar. The
story.
Them. Yeah, these are surprisingly strong, small, youthful people. And oddly enough, just looking at them, I notice right off the bat, they have a certain ear characteristic of another race. So yet they were on this planet before these elves arrived. So there's some interesting intrigue there. But moving on to the elves now, we have the first of the Fey races. When the elves suffered from the schism, they were split into multiple races, and they assimilated basically into the natural flora and fauna of the frontiers of Monadea, the world that they've invaded, essentially. And they've become the light elves here, or the Seelie, the dark elves, or the frost elves, known as the Unseelie. And then the people of the hill, the Aishi, who are the wild elves. And then the Azrai, who are the people who fled to the seas and became aquatic. And then we have this other really, really weird thing where there are no orcs in this world. That's a Tolkien thing, and it's something that Warhammer and Warcraft has done to death. So unlike, looking at, hey, let's put orcs in or whatever, we took a look at the goblins, and the goblins are a kind of a tragic race where they are the result of a magical kind of side effect of a union between the other elven races. So if one of these two races try to reproduce, they run the chance of getting a goblin child. And the goblin is, as you can tell, it has a hodgepodge of other ethnic characteristics. I mean, it's short, almost looks like a Tomtar in this state, but I'll get to that in this eerie shadow behind him. But that's where the myth of the changelings come in, where the elves would, it's why it's so forbidden for an elf and a man, to reproduce, because they have a higher risk of producing goblin spawn. And, the parents would see this mutated wretch of a child and basically try to steal another person's child and replace it with their changeling, who would most likely not live to adulthood because of all of his defects. But oddly enough, goblins are most of them are nuts because they're all messed up psychologically and physically. But
oh my God, did you just call me a goblin?
Get your jab. No.
Oh, hell no.
So just to cut back to the goblins. Goblins go through a mutation process that you can actually invest skill points into, and it's called the Hamask. And the Hamask transforms them through these mutations into the kobold form from their original hob form, making them more man-sized. They look kind of like corrupted green-skinned elves. And if they continue, they can actually become more of this bugbearish ogre, and the ogres look almost like traditional orcs, yet they don't have the tusks or anything. And again, notice the metal; none of it is iron or steel because they're elves by nature, so they have that aversion to.
I don't know, but the female ogre looks kind of hot.
Death by snoo snoo. Ladies, please.
Bring it on!
The mind is willing, but the body is soft and spongy. So these were the playable races, and some like most of the races you'll see in the War of the Trees are the Fey races. So, as far as playable races go in that story, we'll see mostly these. Let's see if I got anything else. Just a couple of. We went through various art styles, to evolve because this, like I said, this project's like 30 years old. So here we have the Aishi, the Wild Elves, created by Kalman or Evil Kalman, a Canadian artist who made these really cool initial designs. And it's, his style is very, very, very clean and unique. But we ended up kind of going with a different style. Here's another example of the Seelie, the light elves. Their skin is almost phosphorescent, has that slight glow to it because they've attuned with light. And here's another example. Here's Zedge or Zach's version. As you can tell, they look very different from the Alvar that you see represented in the War of the Trees. But there's it leads to that. I think that's it from that, and then just a couple of classes. Like here's that ogre with the Hamas in full bloom. Yeah, he's got a flail and a type of axe. And
did you really have to give him weapons?
I know he could just rip you in two like what is it, Juggernaut? I'm just gonna rip you in two.
Oh, terrible.
But so we have the free man here in his traditional Dindori armor, complete with script, and he's very, very iron and steelish with some brass accents. So it's definitely something offensive to the Fey folk, and the fact that they're desert dwellers doesn't make them any more appealing to the.
So they live in the desert and they wear stuff that's offensive. So the elves are SJWs. Jesus.
Well, they are matriarchal. So.
Hey, Chris. Hail to the chat.
Hey.
Hey, Chris.
How's it going, Chris? I think I've pretty much showed everything, and of course we've already seen the trailer. And then, lo and behold, the comic book itself. This is everybody that's worked on it. And yeah, this is. I think that's about as far as I can go. Yeah, don't want to give away too much.
Went too far. We got an extra page, exclusive.
Yay! So yeah, there. I'll stop sharing. There we go.
And I'll start sharing again. Let's see. And we will take a look at the tiers. So there is the feature tier is the book and card bundle of the 9 collectible cards for Series 1, including the special game card to let you speak dragon.
Yep.
So now I have to ask, how far behind the books is the game going to be?
In terms of production?
In terms of announcing like release stuff and.
Well, what I'm hoping to do is get the War of the Tree Saga out and get enough of that name circulating around so that people understand. Oh, I know that story, or I've read that book, or I've seen whatever. Mm-hmm. And once if we get to the omnibus, which would be amazing, knock on wood. But if we get to that, then it will it'll drum up the interest of me approaching one of my sculptor friends to start with the miniatures for the game. The rules themselves have they've been developed for 30 something years. It's just a matter of getting them into a PDF, getting an editor to suss out the poor grammar or whatever of a teenager, and to make sure that all the art that I've commissioned over the years fits in the book. And that would probably come much later. Actually, I mean, I don't want to lie and be like, oh, it'll be right after, because the game itself would be considerably amount of more production than the stories. No, and what I'm hoping to do is focus the energies that I have on the story and tell something that would make the game actually worth, you know what I mean? Like have something where, there's value in the stories, and whether or not you get the game is irrelevant. These are awesome stories. And, when the game comes around, because it's a bigger ordeal, you'll know that there's a foundation of lore. The stories have already been there and to substantiate everything. And when you walk into the game, you'll know, oh, I know what they're referencing here, or, I know where that landmark is, or something to that effect.
So there are only 50 of these bundles available. Mm-hmm. You get the book and you get all 9 collectible cards for $23, which is kind of a steal.
Yar.
Yar.
Standard book.
Yeah. Standard book, $15. It's an awesome. You got awesome price points. So
sweet. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't really trying to make like a profit off of it. I mean, I know that sounds like a really dumb thing to say for selling this, but ultimately I want this to be the first one's free kind of thing. You want to fly, you got to buy. And I don't want to make it a cost prohibitive thing. And I looked at other books that were of comparable size, and I thought, hey, I'm giving 50 pages of full color here, $15 plus shipping. That's is that really is that well within your range of impulse buying? If you saw that at a checkout counter while you were, at Walmart or at Target or something, would you go, oh, look at that cover, pick it up and go, oh, it's only $15 and drop it on the belt?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't put it on the belt. I would hold it in my hand and be like, can you just scan this and put it in the bag for me?
Yeah.
Do not touch it.
Yeah. She folded it.
What happened? I don't know. The cashier folded the book. Next thing I know, he knocked her out. I used a spell. Shut up. The Michelle's variant is $20, and it's limited to 100 copies. And the same with Genzaman's cover. And so far, somebody has claimed one of Michelle's covers and 3 of Genzaman covers. And the Epic Bundle. So this would be the retailer tier.
Yeah. I mean, if you're with like 5 of your mates or whatever, and you're like, hey, we can get these cheaper if we buy it in one big bang. There's your opportunity.
So $60, 5 books plus the double-sided poster.
I believe so. Yeah, it's.
Oh, let's open it up, stupid. There you go. See, this bundle is a bulk deal for comic shop owners or just a group of 5 friends. Like any of us playing a game or reading comics have friends. Get it while supplies last. Book 1, standard cover, 5 copies, and variant cover poster. Yeah, so it's not the double-sided poster. It's the poster of Michelle's cover.
No, it's both. The poster is double-sided. I refer to it as. Okay. I might have to rename that slightly, but yeah, it's the variant cover poster is basically, it's a double-sided poster. It's 19 inches by 27 inches, so it's pretty big. And on one side it has one of the variant covers, and on the other side it has the other variant cover. That way you don't have to decide which variant cover you like more.
Yeah. And so far, this is limited to 50. And so far, 2 people have claimed these, so there's only 48 left. I mean, it's a good deal. That poster itself is probably close to the $60, right off the bat.
Well, it's pretty big. I mean, it's not quite the 24 by 36 that I was hoping for, but the 19 by 27 is at that large enough size where it's like, wow, this is a big poster, but at the same time, it's not so large that you can't fit it on a wall.
Let's see, what's Mike saying? I'm turning the old SAI files for Life on Korra 1 into PSD so my colorist can touch them up for the second print run. Oh, very good.
Nice. It's all about the layers.
Yeah. Onions have layers. I'm like an onion. I have layers. So you stink. No, layers. Waking up too busy for my own good, feeling a serious burnout coming.
Oh, no.
Take the week off, Mike. I told you.
Yeah, I need a mental health week.
Yeah. At least a mental health week.
Yeah.
Mike's in the Netherlands, and I think he did 2 conventions, like back-to-back weeks. And, of course, had a blast at the conventions, but then had to go back. He moves furniture during the day. So he had to go back to moving furniture after, all the fun and hauling stuff back and forth.
Oof.
But, it looked like a great time. Lots of good pictures came back from it, which is good because I can't afford to go to a local convention. Never mind one over in the Netherlands.
Yeah. I've always wanted to go to Amsterdam.
Oh, I was so close one year because of the radio station down here in Providence used to have HJY used to have the getaway special weekend with ABC Travel, so you could travel with the 2 morning hosts, Paul and Al, to Amsterdam.
Wow.
And then Amsterdam changed its rules, so only actual citizens of Amsterdam could partake in the stuff that we would actually go to Amsterdam for.
The devil's lettuce.
I'm like, oh great! Now what's left to do? The red zone? No thanks. They've got somebody's grandmother in lingerie in the front window. Come in. I make you tea and cookies.
Oh God.
Nobody wants your cookie, grandma. So we want to get this shared out. If you're one of the people that have one of the 9 backers so far. I mean, 9 backers and almost $400 is pretty good numbers.
Definitely grateful for everybody that's backing. I mean, like that notice to the backers says, this isn't a thing that we're asking for kind of help with the production. The production's already there. You're guaranteed whatever perks you've purchased.
Oh, great. Mike Jimmy. Oops, wrong one. Harlem has better hookers.
Oh, God.
How would you know? Amsterdam sucks.
Oh.
I've got cons until the first weekend in October. Oh, awesome.
Very cool. Exposure.
It's an actual student town. So, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. That's no good.
And rallies and protests every day.
Oh, good Lord. Amsterdam lives matter.
Man.
It's like, no, stop that. Please stop.
Can't you just enjoy a good thing?
Yeah, really.
Well,
So, I think one of the biggest things is this featured tier. I mean, unless don't let me talk anybody out of the pseudo retailer tier with the five books and the double-sided poster. But for $23, you get cover A and the entire set of cards for Series 1. So, and one of them is going to be instrumental in saving your life when the game eventually rolls out, because you'll be able to speak to the dragons and the rest of the elves. They're just fucked.
He just says he wants to suck us like snails.
What's escargot? You don't want to know. Oh, don't get me started. Okay, we'll try not to. I mean, the project looks amazing. I love the covers. I especially love Michelle's covers because, I mean, the colors on her work are just there's something special, really. I mean,
she's she's freelance art, so she's available for I know she has her commissions open quite a bit, and I basically urge anybody to check out her work because she's got amazing I know she's done one of Mercy from Overwatch. She's done one of Tracer. She's done one of my favorite, was it Widowmaker? She's also, worked for Riot Games. I believe she's done some work for the League of Legends character designs, or at least for their those amazing paintings. And like you said, like her use of color, like it's
astounding.
Yeah, it's very vibrant, and I love that about it. It's not subdued. It's not next gen.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I'm searching. There's something I wanted to bring up. Oh, this is that's one of the covers of Mike's book, Life on Korra.
Oh, nice. Sweet.
Oversized, UK size, so it's, way oversized as far as American comics go. Like magazine size, so you get, nice big art.
Nice. Got a Ganchuan.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was I think it's buried underneath. Okay, never mind. I was gonna try to pull out the book that spurned Overwatch, but I have all these books stacked up on top, and I have the Batmobilia stuff, where they made the small vehicles with the lenticular backdrops, like in a sealed case.
Nice.
So I got a stack of books on top of a still uninstalled from 10 plus years ago, internal drive. And then there's another big stack of books before Batgirl Cycle is there. And in that stack of, it's right underneath Batgirl Cycle. Darn it. I've talked about it so much. There it is. Because it doesn't need to be there. So I will pull that out. Relax, Batgirl. You're going back. What's in that case? Yvonne Craig's bones. Now be quiet. This was from CAE Studios. It's issue 1. And and it was the game, of course, is just called Overwatch. This first comic was called Project Overwatch. And I will sadly blow myself up really quick.
Nice.
There's the front cover with an original sketch by Javier Lugo, and he signed it. You see the JL.
I when I worked on Firefall, I worked with the original art team or Arnold Sang, who designed the Overwatch characters.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons I don't like the gaming industry is that I was on the team that designed most of the skills for the characters of Overwatch. I didn't work for Blizzard.
Oh.
Yeah.
One of those third-party things, and be like, okay, thanks. We'll see
you.
No.
Well, Red 5 Studios, the company that was working on Firefall, was comprised of former Blizzard alumni. And when the Red 5 Studios was experiencing financial difficulties, a lot of the people left Red 5 and went back to Blizzard. And mysteriously, our designs started appearing over there. I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying they did it, but we had this one environmental artist that stuck with us, and I felt so bad because This guy was an environmental artist, but he was a prodigy. Like, this kid was insanely smart. He was one of those like triple threats where he was an artist, he was a musician, and he was a programmer. It's like, why are you working for a game studio? You literally are a one-man game studio. And we were discussing kind of issues with the hook shot, Widowmaker's hook shot. At the time, the class was called the Stalker, and it looked exactly like Widowmaker, but only it wasn't purple skin and all that stuff. But anyways, he had helped us devise a solution to handling the ray tracing snap of her hook shot, meaning that when she fires her hook shot, it produces a projectile that attaches to another object, and it creates something called a ray that shoots from the character's hand to the object that was shot. And if anything disrupts that or breaks that ray, then the line snaps. And you have gravity in the world, so when your character is trying to do like Tarzan swings, jumps up in the air and shoots off the hook shot, well, if there's like a tree branch or something between you and what you just connected to, snap, your thing's instantly broken. Like, you're going to fall to your death. So he pulled out our art asset, put it in his own custom engine, and showed us how, like, well, what if we just reduce the impulse of gravity to like 0.005% when it was fired, so that it does like a Spider-Man effect where the character jumps up in the air, isn't frozen for a few seconds while they shoot it, and then once it connects, then it resumes the gravity impulse again. And that was how they ended up solving the ray tracing snap. And it sucks because it's like all that work, and he didn't get any thanks or anything. And now another company has literally got what you know what I mean? Like, you see his work, and it's like, God damn it, man! Like, and yeah, there's other things, but I'm not saying anything.
I'm not saying anything now. I didn't say anything then.
Yeah.
Quote unquote Babylon 5.
Yeah. but that's a very common thing in that industry. It's the reason why everybody's guarded, and it's why nobody gets credit for anything, like the artists. And you always get these face men, these like producers are freaking word. I'm sorry, but I've known maybe 5 producers in my decade working in the industry that I was like, wow, you really are an asset to this team. And the rest of them were just like office politicians.
I was going to say used car salesman, but politicians probably better, because at gunpoint the used car salesman will tell you the truth about the hoopty that you were going to buy off him. The politician will just keep lying.
Yeah, well, it was just like the grunts, the people in the trenches were just kept away from any type of interviews or anything. Shut up, you can't talk about this, you have an NDA, blah 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 blah, stay in the shadows, crunch 90-hour work weeks, and then we'll lay you off when the game launches. Meanwhile, you get these people that are just screwing around in the office all day with their stupid Nerf guns, watching Hulu and Comedy Central on office time and all this stuff, and they're the ones that are featured in interviews and all this stuff. And it's like, you're literally doing nothing for this. Like, if you were not here, if you had like somebody hit, like a car hit you, we would still do this product.
There you go. Producer, what do you produce?
Yeah, bovine
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, pretty much. It was very frustrating.
They are the spokesmodels of the gaming world.
Well, they're the ones that are supposed to schedule out your game budgets. Like, this is how long it's going to take for X, this is how long it's going to take for Y, and all this stuff. And if we're in a crunch, then they failed to do their job, because they're the ones that are supposed to be mapping out this entire, this is how long everything's supposed to take. And by the end of, like, say, 2 years, we'll have everything done. And as far as my understanding goes, I could be completely wrong, but that's what my understanding of what a producer was. But why is it then that every studio I've worked in, there, right before the game launches, you have this like grueling crunch, like the Defiance one? It was like 9 months of crunch. We were moving my mother out of her home and putting her into assisted living, and I couldn't fly back to New England to do this. So my sister's basically doing the whole thing by herself, and I'm like, sorry, I can't do this. They're gonna fire me if I, do this. And lo and behold, the producer who tells us all this goes on paternity leave for like 2 months. Yeah, and I'm like, seriously? So yeah, not a big fan. Like
I
I
would
was.
have been so fired.
Yeah. Well, I ended up getting let go after the game launched, and it was so funny when one of my coworkers, he's like, "Oh, I saw you enter the conference room, and I saw you take one look at HR at the one end of the conference table, and everybody else at the other. And you just did that epic eye roll, and you knew exactly what you were walking into."
Mike prefers editors and directors. They actually do that
Yeah.
for the people that work for them. At least he does, yeah. Because
Yeah.
Mike's also is also a publisher. So
Nice. That's awesome. You wear many hats.
mm-hmm. Hat Club. So before we head out, I know the game's a long way off, but
Yeah.
is it card based, or is that just a component of the game, like, character wise, to so other players can see who you're playing, what kind of class you're playing and stuff?
Well, so it's kind of a hybrid card slash tabletop game. Because when I was building it, I took what I liked from other game systems at the time, and then reworked them to a point where I was like, how can I make this as digestible and modular as possible? And the cards kind of came into play, where they're not like collectible cards in the sense that you have to buy booster packs or whatever and get random cards, and that's how you access. It's more like you get all the cards when you buy the game. It's just the skills that you select or the equipment that you select is recorded in card format to make it easier for play. And we found that when we put kind of consolidated information or very concise information on those cards, they were easier to digest or grok than the having consult the book, flip through 30 pages or whatever.
Or look at a DM and be like, the DM's like goes, I just made up the story. I don't know how any of this shit works.
Yeah, that was the other thing, is that because the game is heavy, it's story focused. Like for example, it's not called a DM, it's called a narrator. The game has a lot of kind of literary or story-esque elements to it that focus on things like acting, or like there's experience bonuses for things like the Emmy of the evening. If you've hammed it up, because we found that like most players, once you get them out of that shell, initially they're like, I don't want to do that. That's embarrassing. That's stupid. But as soon as they realize there's incentives to doing it, you get more out of your players. You get more of a drive for acting, and that's where some of the best drama came from. Like what you're seeing in this in the War of the Trees dialogue in the comics is. It's lines taken from the game. These are players actually saying this, and there's even odd lines that I put in there that I was like, wow, that's actually a really that's a pretty deep thing to think about. Like the elves are ever live, or they're long lived. They don't die from age or illness or anything. And there's a scene where one of the elves is with another player. And it's just, and again, this is not something you get out of a strictly combat mechanics game, where they're sitting down discussing something, and then the player asks, does it hurt? He's like, well, what do you mean, does it hurt? He's like, well, you're rotting, like you're getting old. Does that hurt? What does that feel like?
It does. It hurts a lot.
Well, that's what the other players. He's like, yeah, it's pain, but you get used to it. It's a good pain. It means that you've lived long enough years to tell death, to scram for another day. It's a badge of honor to be old and infirmed, and because
my life.
And it was just having something like that in a stupid, like in a game where it's usually like, I roll the 20-sided die and I want to bang the chicks at the bar. If there's any girls there, I want to do like it was actually like a serious, like, wow, that's some pretty deep shit coming out of a teenager, man. Like.
Yeah, there were a bunch of kids that were playing like before all the crap happened to me. The latest Star Wars RPG had just gotten released.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, every time there's a new game, somehow all these kids that all live at home in their parents' basement. They're either, they're somewhere between high school age and college age. But every time a new expensive as fuck game comes out, they all have the money and they're like sold out before they even unpack the boxes.
Yep.
I'm like, really? But, so they started playing. I go, what game's that? He goes, and they look at me, like I got three heads. He's like, I'm just there to play Magic. And they're like, the Star Wars RPG, it just dropped. I go, oh, cool. So I bought the full thing.
Nice.
It's still in the shrink wrap that it came in, because I realized to play these games, you must have friends. I have no friends. I have friends that live in other countries and other parts of the world, and all my other friends are all married. For some reason, their wives don't allow them to come out and play with me because I'm a bad influence.
Game over.
Get over here.
Yeah.
Something about me working at strip clubs for 30 years. I don't know.
Oh no.
Be like, I'd leave like text messages on my friend's phone and be like, okay, so I'll see you. You come and buy centerfolds on your way home from work. I'm there till 8. So, just come in, tell me you're looking for me. And, the wife would always pick it up and be like, he will not be stopping there.
Oh, cool.
And right now you can't come here for a while. Followed you on Twitter, Chris. Hit me up for chat anytime. Mike's done a bunch of crowdfunding and has an inside track to some of this, and I will get you. I will work up a list, a random list of other shows to try to get on, and put in words. There's all kinds of stuff like that. So,
well, thanks for following me, Mike. I'll do you the follow you back. There we go. Yeah,
I think there's only been like one person that I didn't. Well, two people that I didn't follow back. So I was like, no. It's like, no, you're shady. I don't like you.
Is it like the I'm going to hunt you for sport at AOL.com or?
Yeah, kind of. One guy that just a hot mess, and the other one, after knowing me for 5 years, decided he was going to follow me on every social media.
Wow.
After the fact, I'm like, go, you're up to something, and I don't like it. So feel free to follow me. By the way, you followed me, and then I hid from you, so don't worry about it. We're all good.
Yeah, that's bordering stalkerish.
Oh yeah, it's a little sketchy. Before we head out here, we're gonna take a look at the trailer for Mavericks Origins Volume 1. I think they're down to about 6 days left.
Whoa.
Like say, some of them just make me go, nope.
War is a topic of vital importance, a subject of inquiry that cannot be ignored. It is a matter of life and death. It can be a road to safety or to ruin.
In an alternate version of our world, brought to the brink of total collapse, rival nations fight for global domination, and elite pilots in futuristic combat suits wage war on the battlefield of tomorrow. Now, 6 brave soldiers on a seemingly routine rescue mission will encounter more than they bargained for and uncover a dangerous secret that could change their world if they live long enough to see it. Mavericks Origins Volume 1.
Now on Indiegogo.
6 more days left on Mavericks. They are on Kickstarter. I know a lot of my audience prefers Indiegogo because they take the money right away. So you're not getting surprised when you go to pay a bill, a rent, or actually buy yourself some food, and then there's nothing in your account.
Wow,
So,
that was animated and everything. That looked awesome.
yeah, the writer of the series, he has a background in film, so he set the whole thing up. They ended up hiring a couple of animators to help out with some of the higher stuff, and they finally finished editing that entire trailer about 10 minutes before they launched.
Well, it looks awesome. So good on them.
Yeah, I've had a bunch of people go, "Is that a new anime?"
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I want to watch this.
It's an old-fashioned anime. It's called a page turner. You turn the page and read the story. It's a big project. It's their first book. It's going to be a very big book, and it's oversized. And it should be very impressive, or at least it better be, because I bought everything.
Well, the trailer sold me. That looks awesome.
Yeah, it's a great project. Chris, why don't you let everybody know where they can follow you on social media?
Sure. So as we can see right here at Infinitale Comic on Twitter, you can go to the Infinitale Chronicles website at infinitale.chronicles.com. And the Indiegogo campaign, I think there's a link I could post in there somewhere.
Yeah, I've already got that in the chat right there. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. And that's pretty much it. We'll have more developments as as the campaign goes on. And we're hoping to get this book out and into people's hands as quickly as possible. So, because it's already funded, it's just sitting at the printers waiting for quantities.
Yeah, so share it out so more people can see, get their eyes on it. Talk to people about it. If you back, thank you, and
yes, thank you.
Thank you, and tell more people about it, and keep sharing it out. If you haven't, please go to Infantile Chronicles on Indiegogo. The link is in the chat further up, and you can click that link and go right to the campaign page and check out the perks that are there. The only thing I didn't see that I know a lot of people like to see is original art tiers for sale.
Mm-hmm. Like prints?
No, not prints, like actual original art. Like
physical media.
Like physical, like physical media. I can bump Mike's name one more time tonight. Mike drew me that Joker.
Nice.
Yeah, people like to buy original pages of artwork, covers, original sketches, anything like that. I figure this entire book was all done digitally, correct?
Yes. I believe everybody's a digital artist, so I don't know if we'll be able to get physical, like pencil or ink to paper. But that I've heard some requests or suggestions on things like sketch cards, things like that. So it might be something we could be pursuing in the future, maybe hidden tiers or additional tiers or perks.
Yeah, just something to think about. I mean, the campaign's got everything else. And $23, you get the book, all 9 cards, and that special card that'll probably save your life when the game eventually releases. There's going to be 10 issues of this for this story, 10 issues altogether, and at the end, it will be a hardcover omnibus edition.
Yes, that's the ultimate goal. Is I've mapped everything out so that we're not winging this. There isn't I don't know where this is going to go. There's going to be no Rey Skywalker at the end of this. This has been a planned story. It started over 30 years ago, and ultimately our goal is to, beyond the scope of this specific campaign, is to present the entirety of the series, and eventually that will lead to the omnibus, the hardcover, all 10 books, in one shot. But it's ultimately it's something that needs to be built toward. We can't get to book 10 until we get through book 1, and that requires backing. So we're mapping it all out there, and the reason why we put it out there is so that there's some level of confidence boosting that we're giving to our readers, saying, hey, we know where this goes. This isn't something that we're winging. This isn't something that the writer lost track of, or George R.R. Martin did, and you'll never see the final books. No, we have everything here. It's just a matter of getting it produced. If once we get the funds for production of the additional books, because like I said, I funded the first book and it's ready to go, but it costs more than my car. So I can't keep doing that. So we're relying on Indiegogo and crowdfunding to get our supporters to help us at that ground level to get this into a full-fledged series.
And if I can get that dragon card, I need to speak to that Hydra about eating Kathleen Kennedy.
Well, the good news is Zen is actually the person who helped basically build the book with me. He's watching now, so hey, Zen.
Hey. So Zen, can the Hydra eat Kathleen Kennedy, please?
It's probably like what the hell?
And pretty much everybody at Lucasfilm. But I want to thank you for coming and hanging out, and going way off topic earlier in the discussion, and going through the book and showing all that extra artwork. It just looks amazing.
Well, I'd like to thank you for having me. I really enjoyed chin wagging with you. So this is awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm gonna download this as soon as we wrap, and I will upload it to podcast platform. And as soon as I get the notification between tonight and tomorrow morning from Spotify that it's posted, I will share the link and of course tag you in it.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, Chris, thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening, fellow New Englander.
Yep.
Everybody else have a great night. We'll be back tomorrow night